All right, well, as it is 7 o'clock, I will go ahead and call to order the Thursday, December 10th, 2020 meeting of the Royal Oak Zoning Board of Appeals. The board does not write the zoning ordinance, but does have the authority to grant relief from it where practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship would result. The board will vote on each agenda item following a public hearing. Use variance requests require a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variances. Non-use variance requests require a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant the variances. If you would like to request that the board table or adjourn your case due to the absence of a full board, which appears to not be the case this evening, you must inform the chairperson immediately after the public hearing. Petitioners shall do their best to limit their presentations to 10 minutes. Each participant in a public hearing shall do their best to limit their comments to 3 minutes. And at this point, I'll do the roll call attendance vote. Mr. Klatt?
Sorry, here. Present.
Mr. Murphy, you're
members should announce where they're at. So if you're here in Royal Oak or here in Madison Heights or wherever you're physically at the moment.
Sorry.
During this,
I am here in Royal Oak.
Ms. Robinson?
I'm here and I'm in Royal Oak.
Mr. Gavin?
I am here from Royal Oak.
Mr. Kroll?
I am here in Royal Oak.
Mr. Curtis?
Here and in Royal Oak.
Mr. Opak?
I'm here also in Royal Oak.
I am here also in Royal Oak. Ms. Zukin?
Here in Royal Oak.
And finally, Ms. Anderson.
Here in Royal Oak.
All right. So that will move us right along to the approval of the minutes for the November 12th, 2020 meeting.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion.
I'll support.
And we have, who was the second? I'm sorry. Mr. Klatt?
I'll support.
All right. Any questions on the minutes? Additions, deletions, corrections? Not seeing any. I will call for the vote. Ms. Anderson?
I agree.
Ms. Zukin?
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Opak?
Aye.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes, from Royal Oak.
Mr. Kroll?
Yes.
Mr. Gavin?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
And Mr. Klatt?
Yes.
All right. I don't believe that we have any unfinished business, do we, Mr. Murphy? All right. So that will move us right along to our first item of new business, E1, case number F201204, public hearing on the appeal of Northern Spire Solutions LLC petitioner and Haley Seaman and Moshe Kandinov, owners for the following variance: waive 2 feet of the maximum allowable 6-foot fence height to install an 8-foot tall site obscuring vinyl fence located at 802 East Lincoln. Mr. Murphy, the floor is yours, and I'm going to run out for like 2 seconds and switch headphones. These things are driving me crazy.
is everyone able to see the screen that I'm sharing?
Excuse me, Glenn Seaman was trying to get into the meeting and hasn't been accepted. Could we allow him in?
His name appearing. Do you know if he's on an iPad or I have one individual with a phone number that I don't have listed?
There was a Glenn Seaman that was going to be coming on the call, and I provided the information in advance.
I understand, and that's what I'm telling you, that information, he's logged on this phone number. I don't have that on my list.
Is it 248-705-2688?
No, I have that on my list. That's what I'm saying. I don't see him on here.
For email address, glennseaman@ameritech.net.
I understand. He's not in the waiting room.
Okay. I'll ask him to try again for the link.
Yeah, I can see all 13. Again, I have one unidentified phone number that I don't see on the list provided to me by the planning department at all. And I have one person that's logged on as just iPad.
Carol, do you have the next petitioner in the waiting room? Excuse me. Do you know if you have that individual? Maybe we could skip forward.
Yes, I do.
Clyde, do you think that might be appropriate?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's just move on to item 2, and then we can come back to item 1 once we get that complete, and hopefully these issues will be resolved at that point.
Thank you.
All right.
Call them and I'll keep looking, so.
All right, excellent. So we will go back to E1 in just a moment, and let's move along then to item E2, which is case number F201205, public hearing on the appeal of Darla Marino Copens, petitioner and owner for the following variances. A, to waive 2 feet of the maximum allowable 4-foot fence height within a front yard setback along North Main Street. B, to waive 2 feet of the maximum allowable 6-foot fence height for a driveway gate and adjacent fence. And C, to waive the requirement that fence materials be identical or compatible to retain an unapproved mixed material fence and construct the remaining segment along the south property line at 1719 North Main. Mr. Murphy.
I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Oops, and I don't want to share that one. One moment. Is everyone able to see which shows a metal fence with a wood slats?
No. I got Lincoln still.
Yeah, that's the first one.
Are we on the first one or we go to the second one?
No, what's on the screen is from the first one.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me try again. Sorry.
No worries.
There. All right. Metal post with wood slats.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. Success. So this site is located on North Main Street, just south of 12 Mile. It's located between Burger King to the south. It's adjacent to Burger King, and there's a auto service garage adjacent to the north, and a hotel directly to the west. This site may look familiar to some zoning board members. The petitioner was in front of the board in more recent history, asking for a use variance to use this house, which was previously approved for commercial use, to use it as a single family home. So the petitioner has been enjoying it as such since then. And they've taken what was a chain link fence, and I will carefully try and switch over to a different screen if I'm capable, and illustrate what the previous image what the previous fence looked like. I can do that. Nope, guess not. Okay, I'm going to go back to the fence. Well, there was the chain link fence there, and the petitioner did leave the metal posts and remove the metal chain link element of that fence. They then attached the wood slats for a traditional looking wooden fence to it. The petitioner was cited by the building division of the community development department, and the building official reviewed that proposed material, which you see in front of you, that combination, in comparison to the fence ordinance. And the fence ordinance doesn't allow for what we refer to as mixed materials. And therefore the petitioner is seeking a variance in order to allow this fence to remain as a mixed material element of metal posts and supports with attached wood slats. The petitioner has also installed the 6-foot wood fence along the west and south property lines, and we'll try and take a look at some photos that illustrate that. Again, the screen illustrates the parking, Burger King, the house, and the fence that was installed adjacent to the parking lot. That fence then wraps around the back side of the house, which is adjacent to the motel. And all of that is a 6-foot wooden fence, again, where previously was a chain link fence. You'll see in this photograph that the petitioner installed the wooden fence up to a portion of the home. They're looking to extend that wooden fence along the side of the house between the house and the parking lot. And the fence would extend beyond the front face of the home by 8 feet. So a 6-foot fence is allowable, but it can't project into what's the front yard of this house. The petitioner has installed the post to then install the fence, but that portion between the house and the post, that comes out into the front yard. They're seeking a variance in order to have that 6-foot fence in the front yard. The petitioner has also installed a wooden gate on the front of the front adjacent to the house, between the house, I should say, and the business next door. There's a difference in elevation from the petitioner's driveway, as you can see, and the repair shop next door. That repair shop does have a wooden fence element, and the petitioner installed a gate fence element to protect the items in their backyard. And that height of that gate fence is 8 feet from the top to the bottom here. Obviously, you can see it's essentially the same height due to the elevation difference. Fence ordinance only allows the fence gate to be 6 feet. It's currently 8 feet, so they're seeking a variance in order to keep that fence that they've installed. Petitioner provided a written statement for the board's consideration, and they've also provided a host of photographs to demonstrate their perspective. I'll scroll through some of those and to field any questions that you might have.
Joseph, sorry to interrupt. Your mic, it seems to be cutting in and out a little bit. I don't know if everybody's having that issue. Like you can hear you and you kind of really drop off and then come back.
No, I agree.
Okay, I'll
Yeah,
try
agree.
to move the monitor a little closer. My apologies. We'll see if it gets any better. Was that any better?
Yeah.
So far.
Would you like me to repeat any of that?
No,
No.
we got the
I
gist of
think, I
it.
think we got the gist, yeah. All right, so at this point, are there any questions for Mr. Murphy? Mr. Klatt?
Mr. Murphy, the front yard, is that, just to clarify, is that defined by the actual setback or where the house is situated? Like, for example, if the setback's only 20 feet, but the house is at 25 feet from the property line, what defines where that setback is?
In this
Or
instance,
where the front yard is?
yes. In this instance, there was conversation with the building department, and it was determined that the existing front yard, the existing nearest point of that house, that's the front yard of it. It's a little bit of a unique circumstance that it's on Main Street and it's stuffed between two commercial uses. It's not a traditional, really a traditional front yard for a single family house. It's not a single family neighborhood.
I understand. Thank you.
Mr. Gavin?
I was just a little curious because I hadn't seen in the fence ordinance before that there was a prohibition against mixed materials. Can you provide some background on that? And I don't know if there's if we even know what the reasoning behind that is, or if it's just kind of a carryover from earlier times.
I was unaware of such a provision as well. So it's perhaps the petition. I know the petitioners had conversation with the chief building official. Maybe when they engage in conversation, they can address it.
This is the petitioner. Can you guys hear me?
Well, let's see if
Can you hear me?
questions before.
Yeah, we can hear you, sir, but wait just a moment while we go through the questions for staff. Mr. Curtis?
Okay,
Joseph, you were cutting in and out a little bit there. I think you said that the front gate across what appears to be the driveway there has been installed at 8 feet. The ordinance calls for 6 foot on a residential, but it seems to be roughly the same height as the existing older fence that seems to be on the car repair shop's property. Does the ordinance on a commercial property allow that to be 8 feet, but the residential has to be 6, or what can you tell me about that?
The fence that's screening an area adjacent to the auto repair facility, that looks to be about 6 feet. It's not 8 feet. It's, as you noted, that difference in the height of the properties themselves. The planning.
So I'm sorry, did you say that the grade is what seemed to get that 6 foot fence close to that 8 foot? I see. Thank you.
Ms. Anderson?
Joseph, the petitioner mentions in his material here that they're requesting the front driveway part to be 8 feet, but then they're going to, with a gradual slope, to 6 feet. And there is an illustration of that. I think it's the last one in our packet. It is, so it looks like it's already been made to 8 feet. Was this just, if he can't get the 8 feet there, what was that about?
I defer some of that conversation to the petitioner and tell you their conversation that they had with the building official. I don't quite have all the details on that.
All right.
Did I see your hand, Mr. Kroll?
No.
Okay. All right, not seeing any other questions for Mr. Murphy. I understand the petitioner is present, sir. Please tell us about your plan.
Well, in regards to where we adjoin next to the auto repair facility, because of that gradual slope there, yeah, we wanted to keep the area right in the immediate area up to 8 foot equal to theirs, so that when people are up on their property, otherwise they could see right over our property at that point because of the grade. So we wanted to keep that area at 8 foot, and as that the lady I heard explain, we want to cove it down so it looks more uniform and down to 6 foot in the middle. But we kind of need that the adjoining side to be up at 8 foot to give us, our 6 foot of privacy and a fence. And then back to the conversation about using different materials together. When I spoke to the inspector, the code enforcer that came out here, he said that was more written for, it was more about the way it looks. And, as the way that we've constructed this fence is you don't see any of that metal. So there shouldn't be a problem with the looks of it. I guess, he said that they didn't want people to go and zip tie wooden fences up to, existing chain link fences. So that was the plan with that.
All right. Any other comments, sir?
And then, yeah, I just want to make sure it's understood. We did on the south side along Burger King, we didn't want to extend 6 foot all the way out to the road, just the portion right there where we have trouble with people cutting through, just to make it a little bit taller, a little more discouraging for people to cut through there. And it's also to give us more privacy in that corner, because people, they park right there in the lot and they're like looking right into our house.
All right, excellent. Did I see anybody's hand? Did I see your hand, Mr. Elfack? Oh, Mr. Klatt, I'm sorry.
Oh, I just had one quick question for the petitioner. Is there a reason why you cannot stop the 6 foot high portion at the line of the home, versus extending it 8 feet? Is there a reason why you can't do that? I understand it's really primarily to stop the passage of people crossing your lot to get to Burger King, but a 4 foot fence should be able to do that. And then I guess my second question.
It's the privacy, especially nowadays with COVID or whatever. We have a lot of people sit right there in that parking spot and eat their lunch or the meals right there in the car. It's more about privacy, I think. Somebody gets out of the car right there, it's a privacy issue.
That's a fair point. I guess my last question would be, did you have a contractor assess the fence post and the wood planks? My only reason behind that question is a chain link fence is allowed to let the passage of air flow through it. So those posts are designed for that. But when you put wood up against it, it's more like a sail, which puts extra stress on those posts. So has someone assessed that for you just to make sure that it is structurally compliant? I agree that from the outside appearance, it looks attractive as you don't see the metal, but just want to make sure that it's structurally sound.
Yeah, well, initially a contractor was consulted, and we stopped at the point of you have to rip up all the concrete under those poles and to put poles in, basically. It was too financially unfeasible to not just use perfectly good poles. And I would argue that the steel poles are going to be much stronger than the wood poles, as well as last longer too. And they're concreted into the ground. I don't know if that answers your questions, or if you want me to get more detail.
No, I just wanted to make sure that you did at least speak with a contractor. Again, I have no idea the spacings of the posts or the structural integrity of them. just a question to see if someone analyzed it for you.
Right. And I am a mechanical engineer, but I guess that, I don't know if that does any credit right now, but I did add this stabilizer poles too in the center, where normally you would have one top at the bottom, and then the way it's secured from the metal into the wood, so it's honestly it's stronger than a wood fence.
Thank you.
Mr. Novak.
That's using what we had to use because, like I said, the poles are buried under. Most of the concrete pads are 8x8, and then on one side, and then the other side we have a asphalt parking lot, and so financially it was just going to be, not feasible to go that route.
Understand.
Mr. Novak,
And then-
the floor is yours.
The question I have is a little bit more on the same that he just asked regarding the 6 feet. You got a post right now, so is that, I'm trying to understand the plan. Is the plan to have just the fence go straight all the way along that line and come past the front of the house, say 4 feet or whatnot, at the 6 foot height and then drop down to the 4? Or is it supposed to turn at the corner where you have that post shown? I'm just trying to understand where exactly the 6 foot is that you want the 6 foot to stop.
Okay, so we're talking about the south side of the house along Burger King, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so any fence that you see in the pictures now was all existing, but it was in chain link.
Right.
And the only reason we decided to extend it is because initially we hadn't pulled a permit because I guess we weren't fully aware that we needed to, but so we decided since we're going to do it, we want that fence to continue all the way down up to the front of the house and then just one section more up to the tree there. There's a tree there at 6 foot to give us the 6 foot privacy all along the south side of the house. And then from there, obviously we have to drop it down because it becomes a traffic issue where people can't see traffic coming, things like that. So we're going to drop it down to 4 foot, continue up to the sidewalk.
So it's not at all. So is it at all cutting back to the front of the house, or is it just, that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to understand, is it meant to cut? I understand now you've got it. We've got to quantify how far past the front of the house your 6 feet can go. So we have to know
Right.
what dimension is. And then I'd like to know at the same time, is there any part where the 6 feet's cutting back to your house?
Oh, you mean to section off? Yeah, well, at the front corner there, there would be a panel that would keep people from being able to cut through there.
Okay.
I think that's what you're asking is,
Yes,
like currently
yes.
how it is now, in the back, there's a little panel that goes up to the
Right,
house.
right.
So we would, if we continued that all the way up, we would remove that piece and install it more at the front of the house. So we would
Okay.
have access to the side there.
Okay. So then what is the distance past the front of the house that you're liking?
That would be even. That would be even with the house.
No. You said you wanted to extend the 6 feet to the tree.
Yeah.
You can't
Yep.
say in our thing, the 6 feet fence can get extended to the tree if we pass that portion. We need to say a certain distance past the front of the house.
I think we measured that. It's 8 foot from the front of the house to that tree. It's 8 foot.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Curtis.
I was just going to clarify that Joseph had already mentioned it was an 8 foot section
Right.
past that front of the house. So,
I must have missed that when his mic
Yeah.
was cutting in and
Yeah.
out.
No worries. I see Ms. Zuka next.
Is the purpose of extending it past the front of the house to block off that last parking spot at the Burger King?
Basically, yes. That's to be the privacy issue. Because like if you park any of those parking spots there and you get out of your car, then you can see right over a 4 foot fence. So we just want a little more privacy from that angle, and it pretty much covers all the way the parking spots. Yes.
All right. Any other questions for the petitioner? All right. Not seeing any, I will go ahead and bring it back to this side of the table for any more additional questions or if anybody's prepared to take action. Mr. Ophak.
I will petition to grant the variance as he has requested for the distance he has requested of 8 feet past the front of the house for part B, and the others to, or sorry, that's part A. The others to be as he has proposed with the cove fence on B.
All right, are you clear on that, Mr. Murphy?
Is the request to, the motion to approve all the variance requests as illustrated, or? I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you. Thank
There
you.
you go.
It's been a long day.
A lot easier.
It's been a long day. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Ophak, and it has been seconded by Mr. Kroll. Mr. Ophak.
Normally I'm against some of this stuff, but in this case, this is a very unique condition. In which case, I think a lot of the hard his own, other than just being in the house that happens to have those type neighbors. The extending the fence a little bit past the front, I can see trying to cover up that last parking spot just to give you a little bit more privacy. And on the other side, having it the 8 feet and coving it down, and that just makes sense to try and make the top even with its neighbor of the garage. And then it would look silly to have it cove down to 6 and not cove back up to 8. It just looked sort of like there was a mistake or something. So I have no problem with what they've proposed. That's all.
Then I'll move over to Mr. Kroll.
Yes, I'm in agreement with you. I don't think, certainly I can find practical difficulty in the lot. Every time we have these cases, though, it always kind of goes through my mind that, geez, those two, Burger King and that has all been there a long time. So the conditions haven't really changed, but nonetheless, I don't think it's hurting anybody in the neighborhood to let them have some privacy from the commercial facilities on 3 sides of them. So I don't find this really an outrageous request.
All right, any other comments from anybody? Mr. Clapp.
Yeah.
Jeff, you're muted.
Sorry about that. No, I agree. I think the petitioner's points are logical, practical, and will do them substantial justice. So I'll support.
All right, did I see anybody else's hands? All right, not seeing any. I will go ahead and do the roll call vote. I'll start with Ms. Anderson.
Support.
Ms. Zukin.
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Ophak.
Aye.
Mr. Curtis.
Yes.
Mr. Kroll.
Yes.
Mr. Gavin.
Aye.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
And finally, Mr. Klatt.
Yes.
All right, so the motion passes unanimously. You are all set.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day.
You too. Guys, have a good one.
All right, Carol, are we set to go back to item E1?
Let's wait for Carol.
Yes, looks like Glenn Seaman is now here.
Okay. I see him on the camera. Excellent. All right, so I've already read the case into the record, so I'll just hand the floor over to Mr. Murphy for further follow-up.
Thank you. This is a duplex located on Lincoln near the corner of Irving. You'll see in the aerial photograph in front of you the duplex, and at the corner on Irving is an adjacent apartment building. Between those two is
Wow. That's why they need the that's why they need the fence.
Picture came up with a deer.
Let me get to the right one. Hold on. Between the two is a 6-foot fence, and they want to replace it with an 8-foot tall site obscuring vinyl fence. If I can ever get to the right screen, having some challenges. And the fence ordinance doesn't allow for an 8-foot fence, so they're seeking a variance of 2 feet. And there we are. That's the current fence that's that separates the two, the duplex from the apartment building. And they're looking to, again, replace that with an 8-foot vinyl fence. So they're seeking a variance from the allowable height of 6 feet to install that 8-foot fence. I'll scroll through to give you an idea. There is an element of decorative aluminum fence, but the majority of the separation is a 6-foot fence. And the petitioner can illustrate some of the logic behind their request. There is a letter from the adjacent apartment owner providing their consent to the petitioner's request. They have no objection.
If you can switch this, thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Murphy at this point? All right, not seeing any, I will go right over to the petitioner. Please tell us about your plan.
Hello, my name is Mary Lou Sable. Thank you for allowing us to speak today. The owner had requested to look at doing some repairs to the fence, and when I did the analysis, it really was in disrepair. And so instead of replacing or trying to repair it, we looked at to replace. In the process of doing that, we looked to see that the elevation difference between the two units is probably close to 2 feet. So essentially, when you're in the duplex, you're looking out the windows, you're looking right into the unit next door. And they're so close that, essentially you could see if someone's eating spaghetti so that privacy element is an issue. And so what we were looking to do was have the additional 2 foot. So essentially having privacy so that Miss Seaman could keep her windows open, enjoy nature versus having them open and looking into into one of the apartments. In the adjacent yard. So that was our thought there. So providing additional privacy on both ends, because as I've been doing work in this particular place, we're doing a renovation that's been permitted. The neighbors have to keep their blinds closed all the time with my contractors going in and out. So it's a real issue for privacy on both sides. So that's a request, and so essentially for privacy, and then maybe even a little bit of a noise reduction too, because when they have their windows open, and if we have the windows open, the noise carries right through. So, Mr. Seaman, did you want to add anything to that?
Yes, if I'm unmuted.
Yep.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I wanted to give you and thank you for your time tonight and your consideration. I think the proximity of distance is the key. It's 6 feet 3 inches from the side of the duplex brick wall to the fence, and then it varies from 10 to 12 feet depending. The lot line is on a slant, so it is very close. So you do hear a lot, and even a simple wall sconce security light, not a floodlight, but a security light, shines directly over into their windows. And when we're on the deck, it's sort of an uncomfortable feeling. If you're on the deck and you look west, you can't help but look inside someone's windows. There's 5 units, and we can probably see in at least 3 units directly or indirectly. So it is very sort of weird. You don't want to look and find someone. One time I happened to see someone stepping out of the shower. They were clothed, but still uncomfortable to know that you shouldn't be looking over past your fence. So just a uncomfortable feeling, and it definitely is. It's approximately 2 feet above grade. So if you take that concept, we're really effectively a 4-foot fence. So it's just lower based on grade.
Okay. Any questions for the petitioner? Mr. Clapp.
I must have overlooked that letter and I didn't see it on Joseph's screen. It wasn't up long enough, but I assume the neighbor to the west is okay with the fence as proposed?
Yes, and we have spoken multiple times and shared the plans with him, and then he wrote that letter.
Thank you.
I'll start with Ms. Anderson, then Ms. Zukin.
Has the petitioner, have you considered a soft screen, as in some arborvitae or something like that would provide the same type of a screening? I mean, your building was built in 2000, and the other property has been there since the 50s. So there was some knowledge, I would assume, when it was built. that there was going to be that tight proximity, but I do think that a soft screen might serve the same purpose.
So,
This is Haley Seaman. We had looked into putting something like you suggested, like an arborvitae. The problem is because the side yard is quite slim. If we wanted a tree that was that tall and then also blocked off enough visual space at the top, because the problem is obviously when you get those tall evergreens, they're kind of triangular and pointy. So there's a lot of space between them. And then also at the ground, there could be 3 at least feet. We had looked into landscaping solutions. And I think my dad had mentioned this, but when you're outside, so even if we did, we all have our windows shut. If I want to be outside on my deck, I can, and we lowered my deck, but I can still see into windows. So it's an indoor and outdoor solution.
and if I could add, it's a 6-foot setback, but there's a sidewalk that goes along from the back entrance along the garage all the way to the deck. So really, we're talking about a 3-foot strip of grass. And Haley does have a dog, and that was hopefully would be our area where we could walk the dog quickly and stuff. So once we take that away, coupled with the utilities like the air conditioner and some, all the other things that sit on the side of the house there, you don't have a lot of room really. Once you put an arborvitae up, you will have 1 foot to 2 feet of walking space. I mean, really be tight.
Mr. Opak.
Yes, I understand where you're trying to get with the hardship of privacy. What I'm trying to understand is how is this different than any other single-family resident that is on a close lot line? For example, myself, my neighbor, their floor level is at least 1 foot higher than my floor level, and their kitchen looks directly into my bathroom. Now, I've had to put up some screening in my bathroom to prevent that from showing, but I'm seeing this as just a normal part of Royal Oak and I'm trying to find where your hardship is different than anyone else's, because I can clearly hear my neighbor with my windows shut, and they can clearly see into my house just because theirs happen to be a little bit higher grade than mine. I'm just trying to see how this relates to everyone else out there who could potentially see this case and then say, well, you let them do it, why can't I?
Well, I guess what I might focus on is the density issue. So we're going from it's a 2-family, so it's a duplex, a 2-family residence, 3-bedroom unit. And then within 16 to 18 feet, we are looking at a multifamily residence with up to 5 residents, and we can see in multiple windows of those residents. I think from a density issue, it's a little different. And just for the record, we are new owners. We just purchased the property in February. So this is not something that we, tolerated for 20 years. We're the second owner now of the property. So I think if you're making improvements to a property, which we are, and we're trying to enjoy the property, you have to say when this duplex only has a front yard, which is more of a open public space with the wrought iron fence, the iron fence. So I think it gives us no area for privacy unless we go in the garage or do something, sit out in the back of the garage in the back driveway. So I think that's open space should be a right and privilege.
Mr. Klatt.
I think one difference is that it doesn't really impact any other properties. Like, for example, it's just these 2. It doesn't abut the rear property behind due to the driveway separation. So I think that is one difference compared to other properties that you may be referring to, Anthony. It's only really impacting these 2 lots.
Right.
And let me chime in on this one, because I looked at that condo. My wife and I were seriously considering purchasing it. It's a beautiful condo, by the way. I love the kitchen. But in the deal breaker, quite frankly, for us was we were standing on the deck and we could see into all 5 of those units, and the lack of privacy from the multifamily apartments right next door. We just looked at it and we just did not want to be looking into 5 sets of units. So the condo itself was absolutely beautiful, but the lack of separation from the apartment is what drove us away from it. So I understand their plight very clearly, because that was a major issue for us. Mr. Kroll.
One of my thoughts sitting here is, I agree with Mr. Klatt that it's kind of a limited situation because it's kind of one duplex and one apartment building. But it seems like if, I guess we can sit here and say you should have known better, but it also seems like we have the ability maybe to help solve this problem instead of having it go on. So I think in this particular situation, I find practical difficulty and I can support this.
Well, there's no motion to support yet.
No, I'm.
Mr. Curtis.
Are we on our side of the table, as we used to say when we were at a table?
Well, let me make sure. Does anybody have any other questions for the petitioner at this point? I see Mr. Gavin.
You have the letter from the owner of the apartments. Did you talk to any of the actual occupants of the apartments and get any of their input on it?
We did not, but Mr. Ott, in fact, I had a conversation with him today to confirm your same question, to say, did you anticipate or do you anticipate that anybody would be against this? He goes, no, Glenn, I've actually had the conversation and everyone is okay. So I was afraid of the same thing, being lessees. They have some rights too.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so with that, I will bring it back to this side of the table. Mr. Kroll.
I will make the motion to approve.
We have a motion, and I see a second from Mr. Gavin. Mr. Kroll.
Again, hopefully Royal Oak's a great place to come and live. And I don't know where these people moved from, whether they were in Royal Oak or not. We clearly see an issue here that I can find practical difficulty in. And why wouldn't we work to enhance the property? And I see this really as kind of no brain.
Hey, Mr. Gavin, any follow-up?
I think there are practical difficulties here in terms of the height difference and the closeness of the two properties. And I think this will do substantial justice to both properties and help with the welfare and safety of everybody there.
Ms. Zukin.
Well, like Mr. Ofek, I don't see that it's that different than a lot of houses in Royal Oak. My deck's raised and I see right over the 6-foot fence into my neighbor's yard. I can see into their windows. I could lower my deck. I bought the house knowing that. And anybody's house, the 6 feet between each house, I'm sure everybody would like it a little higher so they could have more privacy. So I just don't see why there's a practical difficulty here that's not existent anywhere else.
Mr. Curtis.
Yeah, I actually agree with Ms. Zukin on that. And furthermore, there are 5 tenants who have rights, and to just be able to block their view an extra 2 feet without their consent, and those tenants will come and go, and that will impact those tenants indefinitely. So I'm not in support of this particular motion.
All right, any other comments? Ms. Anderson.
I too am not in support, and I'm just not seeing a reason that is a valid one to grant it. I also feel that if you're going to start saying, well, I can see in your window, you can see in mine, they're the ones that can see into the multifamily, because they can go upstairs and they'll be able to look right down. So, I mean, I just am not seeing in this particular instance that there's a need for that, a practical difficulty.
Anybody else? Mr. Kroll, go ahead. I'm sorry, sir.
I would just counter that with saying that we have approved 8-foot fences surrounding apartment buildings before. So it might have been more of a massive apartment versus the amount of residents we're talking about. But I can remember 2 or 3 different times we've allowed fences to go up higher next to a multi-family unit.
All right, that's Mr. Ofek, I'm sorry.
I know it's going to come down to what I just say at the voting point, because Yeah, everyone brings up great points, and I'm really torn on this one, even though I brought up the point. I truly agreed that, yeah, where do you stop this in the future? Because, yeah, Alan's right. This is unique in that this is apartments, and normally we like to allow the separation against the higher. But in the same cases, not like those traditional apartments, which are more setback, and you have a parking lot between the back of the apartments and the house behind it. This is more like a residential that just happens to have apartments right up next to it. So I am truly torn on this one. So, but I think we've had some great discussion to on it. Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and start the roll call vote, and we'll see how this shakes out. I will start with Mr. Klatt.
I'll support. I mean, yes.
Could I make a comment? Could the petitioner make one last comment, please?
As a matter of fact, we're on to the vote, sir, so I'm just going to continue moving forward. So, Mr. Klatt, you were...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
I'm sorry. Yes.
Mr. Gavin?
Yes.
Mr. Kroll?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
No.
Mr. Ofak?
No.
I vote yes. Ms. Zukin?
No.
And Ms. Anderson?
No.
All right, so if I'm doing my math right, that is 5-4, and then that does pass. All right. It was close, but it passes. You are all set.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
All right, have a great evening.
You too.
All right. So moving right along, we are on item E3, case number 201229, public hearing on the appeal of Kingsbridge Real Estate LLC petitioner and 509 East 13 Mile LLC owner for the following variance: a use variance to allow an indoor animal exercise run pen at a veterinary office and hospital located at 509 East 13 Mile Road. Mr. Murphy.
This site was formerly a financial institution with a drive-through. You'll see on the aerial photograph, the parking lot accessed off of 13 Mile Road, and to get to the covered canopy area where the tellers could assist clients, a side drive that led to that canopy. The petitioner went in front of the Planning Commission in November and received approval. However, they're in front of you today because the site is zoned neighborhood business, and a veterinary facility is a special land use, but it explicitly, the zoning ordinance explicitly prohibits outdoor runs or pens for animals. Therefore, the petitioner needs a use variance in order to create, and I'll refer to their floor plan as well. But they want to take the area under the canopy and surround it with a fence so that animals that are recovering can come outside to relieve themselves and get some stretch their legs, get some a little bit of exercise. So they're seeking.
Joseph? I can't hear you.
Yeah.
They're seeking a use variance in order to have the area under the canopy as an outdoor run for animals at this proposed vet clinic. And I'm going to go to the floor plan, and you can tell me whether you missed any of what I said that was important. So the canopy area will be a fenced yard with 6 foot, surrounded by 6 foot wood fence for animals to come outside.
Fenced yard for what, Joseph? You dropped off right after you said a fenced yard for.
It'd be a fenced yard for the vet clinic and the animals that are coming to the vet clinic.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
did I hear you say that the ordinance expressly prohibits an outdoor walk, run area for a clinic like this?
Yes, it does allow for vets, a veterinary office, but it does not allow for an outdoor exercise or outdoor area for animals.
So I'm saying the difference between doesn't allow for and expressly prohibits, does it expressly prohibit?
Yes, there actually is a language in the ordinance which prohibits it, correct?
Thank you.
Joe?
And let me go to Ms. Anderson, then Mr. Kroll.
I'm sorry.
My question for Joseph is some of the reasoning for that, is it because of a health issue with, if you took, and in this case, they're using AstroTurf, I guess. So if the dogs and the animals are leaving debris behind, how are they going to get rid of that? Does it pile up? Does it start smelling? Because a natural grass and soil would do something different to kind of over time with the rain and things, and this is also covered. So how is that working?
Yes, those are generally the rules associated with it. And if an animal's outside for an extended period of time, when they start barking profusely, being this close to single family residential, neighbors start to complain, as they would if it were your neighbor's dog in a single family home. Your neighbor permitted 3 dogs under the licenses of the city. But if a veterinary clinic has 10 dogs that they're taking care of and they're all outside for an extended period of time, the city does get a fair amount of complaints. I will add that while we didn't get any verbal public comment, as Carol had noted at the beginning of the meeting, we did receive a written public comment from the property owner directly east at the small shopping center. And so they did provide some public comment that for the board to consider.
And what about the getting rid of, if they are going to walk the dogs out back there and there's no soil to, how are they going to deal with the contamination? Is that in anything in our ordinances that we?
Nothing expressly, no. And I think the petitioner, that'd be an appropriate question for them to answer as you consider this request.
Okay.
And Ms. Boatman, I do see you raising your hand. I will be getting to you so you can address all those points. I'm just going to stay with the board questions for now. Mr. Kroll.
Yes, Mr. Murphy, is this just a veterinary? I guess I could ask the person as well. I'm wondering, I've been in, is this also going to be a dog daycare center? I'm wondering, there's a lot of veterinary offices that don't have outdoor runs. So that's kind of confusing me as I looked at it.
Yeah, the petitioner can provide you with a response to that. Their floor plan does not indicate that it's a dog daycare or any type of extended stay facility. Obviously, if an animal undergoes a particular procedure, as they can highlight, that they may be there overnight in some instances, and so they would be let outside to go to the bathroom periodically. But you're right, most vet offices don't have a large outdoor area. They maybe take the animals to a very small portion of patch of grass. But this is a fairly sizable outdoor area that's going to be fenced in and certainly has a canopy above it.
Who did I see next? Ms. Zukin.
Does this prohibition apply to all veterinary clinics or just veterinary clinics that are in neighborhood business zones?
Just veterinary clinics in the neighborhood business zone. If they are located in the industrial zone, they would be allowed to have an outdoor exercise area. Usually, as some of the conversation alluded to, some veterinary clinics have an associated daycare or overnight facility, and they're generally on a larger piece of property, so they do have an outdoor exercise area. We do have several dog daycare facilities or overnight facilities in our industrial area. One that comes to mind is at the corner of Delamere and Normandy. And despite the fact that it's adjacent to a railroad track, the city gets a very large number of complaints of barking dogs.
All right, not seeing any other hands, I will go ahead and turn it over to the petitioners. Tell us about your plan, and obviously you heard some questions, and go ahead and address those as you see fit.
Hi, I'm Katie Boatman. So a few things. One, they would never be in there for an extended period of time. It's not what it's designed for. It's just designed for one of my technicians or staff members to walk the dog to go to the bathroom. Most of them, again, my surgical staff, my surgical patients, or drop-off patients, especially with COVID. People would be dropping off pets, and I examine them sometime throughout the day. The space, I actually used to work at years ago at a place on Greenfield Animal Hospital. And I walked the dogs. I was an assistant, and I was deathly afraid every single time I walked a dog. And I even had a backyard portion. It was not a fenced-in area, but it was a backyard portion, part of the synagogue. So I wasn't even near Greenfield Road, but always had an issue with walking dogs there, that they would run off and run into the road. Never had a problem, thank God. But I'm very concerned because, one, there's traffic, major traffic actually through the parking lot. The parking lot has, I think, what they call is off access or something that's on the corner. The access is the McDonald's and the, I think it's the oil shop, I want to say. So I have people, I was just there for like an hour or so working with the architect, and probably about 10 to 15 cars drove through. So one, they're not driving through slowly because they're people who don't really care. Two, there's often every hour several people trying to avoid that light or going to those businesses. So I have a strong concern about walking any pet around in that area. Also, there's landscaping, significant landscaping. So there's very little grass. There's literally like maybe a foot for a dog to try and hike its leg or go to the bathroom. And there's like a small, tiny little area in front of the building. So again, there's just not, and if you're talking about building up waste and things like that, that grass is going to be dead if, again, continuously using this small piece of grass. They also have to access, or go through the parking lot to access other areas. So again, it's really a safety concern. So, and as for, I'm using AstroTurf because it's just not affordable for me to actually rip out parking in that area, in that structure, and put in grass. Just not right now. This might be something that would be something I could do in the future, but I'm doing AstroTurf because it'll lay over that concrete, and it can be cleaned very easily, very sanitized very easily. It's an enzyme sanitizer that is frequently used to help break down anything. As we discussed at the other meeting, there are storm drains, and this goes into an industrial storm water shed. So it'll be rinsed and washed probably hourly, or at least a couple times a day. It would wash down to the drain, which again, I told people before, pets are dogs, especially if I'm walking around the area, they're gonna urinate on the concrete. Hot urine does not smell good on concrete. So, so that's also another area for us to sanitize, wash down, so that it decreases the smell. Stool will be picked up obviously right after that they had defecated, and again, no one's going to be left unattended. No one's going to be there without a person attached to a leash, and no one's going to be there overnight or in any extended. This is not an outdoor run. It's just a grassy area for my staff to walk safely, pets that need to be walked.
All right, any questions from the board for Ms. Boatman? Mr. Olfak.
And I can see how you got a little hardship with this location and thing. And of course, you could always have picked a different location, but usually there's reasons why everyone picks anything. If it gets denied, how are you intending to work with that? Or is it basically it gets denied and it's just going to be a mess because there's nothing else you really can do to you see that you can do at this time?
If it gets denied, I'm only leasing the property, so I don't even know if in the future if I even had money to rip it up. So it'd be just a big ugly eyesore. Some people have put a parking spot or two in there. Again, big ugly eyesore. Plus, I have like apparently an excessive amount of parking spots that the Royal Plan actually recommended at some point ripping up and putting green space in. If it gets denied, I would again suck at walking the dogs, hopefully safely through the parking lot and not get hurt. And it would be very, very stressful.
I think I saw Mr. Clapp.
Yes, if I could add to this too. I mean, I'd like to reiterate the fact that this is not a daycare. The only dogs that are going to be out there are the dogs that are seen as patients during any particular day. And they're going to be walked out on a leash because with Dr. Boatman doing surgery on the animals, after a dog gets completed with the surgery, the best thing they can do is to walk the dog and get it mobile again, which is why we wanted a larger fenced area in there, because the more room you have to walk the dog, the more limber the dog can get and react better after the surgery. So the purpose of the larger yard is simply more room to maneuver. It's not that she's going to toss a bunch of dogs out there and it's going to be a free-for-all. It's not the intent at all. It's strictly for the rehabilitation of the dog during surgery, or if the dog is in the office and is being seen by, Dr. Boatman, and it has to go to the bathroom, they would take it out in the yard and let it do its business and bring it back in again. And the purpose too of the artificial turf is strictly to make it a lot more user-friendly for the dogs and for her staff who are out there. It's a system called pup grass. It's basically made for dogs to run around on and do their business. It's got special enzymes and so forth, which help to counterdict the urine issues. It's got a drainage mat underneath, which makes it easier to clean and wash out. And it does come with special dog-friendly and environmental-friendly chemicals that are also used to help sanitize the system. So I think I want to be clear with everyone that this is not something where it's like a Delamere, which is right by my office. I know I drove by it all the time. It is much more active. This is not going to have a bunch of dogs running around amok like that one does, because it's not a daycare. It's simply an extension of her office to provide a safe place for one of her clients to go out there, do their business, and bring them back in again. And it is also a good place for her staff to decompress, because in this COVID world right now, I mean, veterinary offices are very stressful places, much like any types of medical dental facilities. And there is no real green space. This building is basically surrounded by asphalt. And so the hope is that this would create a nice space for the staff to be out there as well. And with the existing canopy, we actually use the existing canopy and instead of having it just as an eyesore sitting there, it does get a practical use then. So I'm hoping that, we're not really the hardship on this is that it really taking this away from her does possibly endanger the animals that are in her care if she does take them out. And really, it doesn't impact the neighbors. We've got a huge green space between us and the neighbors to the north. I mean, it's very robust existing landscaping. The property next door to the east, it's just a commercial space and we don't even affect it. We're back by its back corner. I mean, and then you've also got an excessive amount of traffic back there as well and people I was there, people cut through that to avoid the light. They go to the oil shop, they try to work around to get McDonald's. So unfortunately, her parking lot is a really kind of a thoroughfare. So we're hoping that the zoning board looks favorably upon this. We think that we do have a hardship that we'd like to address with this in terms of the use of her space. And we don't really feel that we're impacting the neighborhood at all. If anything, we're tucked in the corner, we're behind the building, you can't see it from the two major roads. It's screened very well from the residential street. So those are my basic issues with this fenced yard, as we're calling it.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, go ahead.
The other thing I wanted to comment was that it's really not going to change what happens. I have to walk the dogs. So it's either the dogs are going to get walked around in a very dangerous parking lot, or the dogs are going to get walked in a safe area. Because again, they're not going to be left. So it's not changing the amount of urine that there's going to be present. It's not really changing the amount of feces that's going to be present, or again, our daily business. It's just going to give us a safe space for my staff to walk pets, as well as them to walk, the animals to walk pets, and actually easier way to kind of clean up. I do agree that natural grass can can, filter things a little bit better. But again, I just can't rip things up or put a bigger green space. So again, it's not changing so much the dogs walking places or making noise or barking, because again, it's not boarding. I do not want boarding. I hate boarding. Don't want any grooming. Don't want any daycare. Don't want anybody hanging around.
Mr. Kroll.
Yeah, Joseph. This almost appears to me to be like one of the old temporary variances we used to grant. Because won't this variance only go with the property as long as it remains a veterinarian clinic?
Correct.
So if it becomes any other business plan, that outside area is gone, right?
Correct.
It almost becomes a temporary variance that goes along with the lease.
If you'd like to apply that logic, sure.
All right, does anybody have any other questions for the petitioners? Ms. Zukin.
For Dr. Boatman, I'm looking at this prohibition and it says no outdoor exercise runs or pens. So the dogs are not going to be out there by themselves running around, or they're not going to be penned in there by themselves. Is that correct?
Yes, that's why for our use of the space, it's actually not violating any of the ordinances, because again, like I said, it's just going to be an additional space that's screened off so that the dogs don't get scared of people driving through the parking lot. People just don't drive over the turf, because people probably would, going through because they wanted us to keep that access way. So on the side that the driveway to drive around. So it just, again, keep people from driving. So that's why it's screened in. Again, just in case also a pet gets off leash. Again, it's a safe space so they don't run into 13 Mile or to Rochester Road. And like Robert said, is that it's green space. I want to have a little picnic table out there for us to take a break, lunch, something like that, to again decompress. Suicide rates in staff and veterinarians are increasing. So just green space, something to relax, quiet.
So you could use it for the same purpose without the fence around it, though, except for you're concerned about the traffic.
Yeah, the major purpose is a safety space. So I couldn't really, I guess, but again, it's if the pet gets off leash and runs into the road, no matter where I'm walking the pet in the parking lot, that's always a very huge safety issue. Not only for my staff of getting hit by a car, trying to chase a dog from going into a road, then also the pet who's scared in an extremely scared parking lot. Again, I'm very concerned about the traffic. And there was a question of like picking the area. Why did I pick the area? The area is actually, if you actually look about the surrounding areas, there's a bunch of clinics in Royal Oak, in Berkeley and stuff, but there's actually nothing in that area. The next actual veterinary clinic is 3 to 4 miles away in a square mile. So one of the reasons that I picked that was because of that. The other major reason I picked that space, and I was so excited to get the bank because I was looking at a building kitty corner. I was so excited to have more green space, so I wouldn't have had to have this issue. But I was so excited to get the bank because the bank actually is way more conducive. It's an amazing area, good traffic for people to be accessed. The apartments can walk over to the clinic. It's by Miner's Den, which has been there for 70 years. So it's just very ingrained. And so it's an awesome, awesome location. So that's why I chose it, not only for the community, but for my business.
All right, any other questions for the petitioners at this point? All right, not seeing any hands, I will go ahead and bring it back to this side of the table. Mr. Opak.
I will move to I propose to allow the variance to be granted as requested. I'm just
Second.
I propose to grant the variance as requested.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Opak. Do I see a second? And a second by Mr. Curtis. Back to Mr. Opak.
Although I think this has difficulty in the fact that in all reality, that outdoor space, if they had not called it fenced yard and just called it courtyard with a picnic table out there, this probably wouldn't even be before us. because of the way that their business is ran, and how the variance would go, they're not doing any boarding, so obviously there's not going to be any long-term animals out in that fenced-in portion. So I think the hindrance is they've got something they're trying to keep safe. And as you guys know, I'm always about safety when there comes to stuff. So I don't have a problem with them trying to do something to make it safer for their patients, which happens to just be animals. So because of that, I'm for this.
All right, Mr. Curtis, any follow-up?
Yeah, I'll just add that these dogs are getting walked somewhere to do their business. This is gonna happen. And this makes it safe and reasonable. And I really appreciated Anthony, Mr. Ofek's question about, I think it was Mr. Kroll mentioning the idea that any change of plan, if they wanted to do daycare, or if they wanted to do boarding, would have to come back, this variance wouldn't hold. So these dogs are gonna go do their business, and they're gonna have a safe place to do it for the staff and the pets. That's good.
Mr. Kroll.
Yeah, I've got to tell you, out of all the ones we had today, I kind of fell in love with this particular case because, as Doctor said, there is my girlfriend rescues every dog she sees, and she got so excited because she said there's nothing within any range of this place. So, and everybody it's very dense, and everybody has 3.4 dogs per household. So, probably a great place. The outdoor area. Anytime you take a financial institution, you always have those drive-ins that just look weird, and it's it's now a taco place with a drive-in. So I kind of like the fact that this kind of enclosed that and kind of did something with it, as opposed to just making it look like an old bank branch. So I just think I think this is really a great opportunity. And by the way, that bank branches don't tend to move all that quickly in the real estate market either. So it could also have turned into an eyesore pretty quickly. So I like it a lot, and we'll be supporting it.
Right. Any other comments? Mr. Gavin.
I'll be in support as well. I just wanted to address, I know the neighboring property owner had submitted a letter with some concerns, but I still think this overall will do justice to the area. It's not going to alter the commercial aspects of that area. The pen or the fenced in area is towards the back of that property, and it's not like it's going to be right up front, right next to all the parking for that area. And as has been pointed out, those dogs are going to be outside one way or the other. Might as well be in a safe space, and the fencing will maybe help reduce some of the noise if they decide to bark at all. Although I don't know if dogs that have just had surgery tend to bark a lot. So,
Ms. Anderson.
I'll be in support. I appreciate the petitioner's explanation of the AstroTurf, because I was just thinking it was a piece of carpeting that was putting down, but I think it's a little more advanced than that. So that was my concern really initially, because I like the idea of having some place that the animals can go without burning their feet or anything on the asphalt. So I'll be in support.
All right, not seeing other hands, I will go ahead and do the roll call vote. This time I will start with Mr. Curtis.
Yes.
Mr. Ofek?
Aye.
I vote yes. Ms. Zukin?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Klatt?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Gavin?
Aye.
And Mr. Kroll?
Yes.
All right, that passes unanimously. You are all set. Thank you both very much. All right, moving right along here to, where are we? Item E4, case number 201230, public hearing on the appeal of John and Nicole Sanders, petitioners and owners for the following variances. A, alter, expand a nonconformity. B, waive an additional 3.1% or 189 square feet of the maximum permitted total lot coverage of 30% to permit construction of a two-story rear yard addition to an existing single-family dwelling, and further increase the total lot coverage at 502 South Laurel. Mr. Murphy.
Okay. Is everyone able to see the photograph on the screen?
I've got a black screen.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Not yet.
about now?
There we
Yes.
go.
All
There we
right.
go. All right.
This site contains a two-story single-family home and a detached garage. All the structures on the site currently slightly exceed maximum allowable lot coverage, which is 30%. All of the structures on the site currently cover 31% of the lot. So it's currently non-conforming in terms of the total lot coverage. The petitioner proposes, I get to the right photograph. This is the rear of the house. The petitioner proposes to construct a two-story rear yard addition to the rear of the house. That existing front or the existing rear porch that you see would be converted to living space, and then the rear wall of the house extended further out into the rear yard. And the living space would be added on the second story of the newly constructed rear porch. And we'll look at the drawings. The expansion of the home would increase the total lot coverage to 34.1%. So the petitioner is here today to seek a variance from the maximum allowable lot coverage. Again, what's currently there is non-conforming, so they're seeking to expand that non-conformity. We'll go through the renderings and the floor plans, and I will note that there was a written public comment that's included in your report from the adjacent property owners. And I'll go to the floor plans to while the petitioner describes their project. I can also bring up at that point in time, I'll bring up the floor plans to provide a little more logic to their request.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy at this point?
They all left the screen.
All right, not seeing any, I will go ahead and move on to the petitioners. Tell us about your plan.
Well, we lived in Royal Oak. I've lived in Royal Oak for almost 2006. I've stayed in apartments and the house across the street, and we eventually moved here. We got married. We have 2 young children, a 3- and a 5-year-old girl. And our plan is to add a second-story addition and a second full bathroom. Right now, we only have 1 full bathroom. And with a family of 4, maybe expanding, we'd like to keep the 4-bedroom layout as well as that second full bath upstairs. My wife and I currently work from home full time, and we will, even after any COVID, continue to work at home full time. So we really need that extra 4th bedroom to use as an office. Originally, we tried keeping the same footprint of the house, but to add what we needed and still keep the bedroom that we will need to use, it really constricted the size of the rooms, and we couldn't fit everything that we needed in that. Basically, that is our plan. We add the mudroom as kind of a store-all place, and then on the second story, you can see that we added the second full bath. Nothing in the front of the house has changed. It is just the back 2 bedrooms, and there was a porch on the currently done. In the front, and the siding and the materials used will match what the existing has to keep that same historical look of the original part of the home.
All right. Any questions for the petitioner at this point? Ms. Zukin.
What is the total proposed square footage of the house when the addition is on?
Jay, do you have that figure?
I can leave the screen and look that up real quickly. Hold on just a second. So I'm going to minimize this. And I am going to open up my,
that is going to extend over the back side of the house of 198.
Yeah, that extension is a total of 198 square feet. The total square footage of the home is listed. If you could please bring up the cover sheet of the plan. I believe
Let's see, where did that go?
2118.
Minimize this.
2118.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
just the footprint though. That's not,
Yeah. It's, the cover sheet has the cover sheet of the drawing. I don't have it up on the screen. The cover sheet of the drawing, which was submitted, has all of the area listed for the home on that particular sheet.
It would appear that Mr. Murphy, can you go back to that screen for 1 second, please?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the screen for right here. Let's see if I can.
That's the one. Because it also does note that the detached garage is also 587 square feet, so that needs to be backed out of that 2118 number for the dwelling itself.
Correct. How do you, man, come on over here. Help me with this thing. Make this screen bigger.
Well, I think that answers Ms. Zukin's question. Does anybody else have any questions for the petitioner at this point? Ms. Anderson.
I'm wondering if he'll be able to access his garage once this addition goes on.
We've marked it out with cones where the addition will set, and we were able to pull our cars in and out and access the garage.
Mr. Ofak.
I was trying to determine how far out the current wood landing and steps come out from the current house. There's not a dimension that I don't.
About the same size as what the addition will be. So if you imagine the addition of the second story will come to where the existing steps end, and then that will run to the
guessing. That's what I was guessing, but I was trying to. I couldn't find an actual dimension of the existing.
8 inches.
Any other questions?
We would really like to stay in Royal Oak and if approved, we feel like the forever home.
All right, excellent. Not seeing any other questions, then I will go ahead and bring it back to this side of the table. Mr. Ofak.
Actually, I did have one question.
Yes, sir.
And it just came up with Leslie's. And I'm concerned too. I know you've marked it off with cones, but especially I'm guessing with kids starting to drive, they're going to get back there. They're going to be a little more sloppier than yourselves. What are you all right if we don't allow you to go as far to the driveway side and we limit you to say the edge of where the steps are now, so that this way you aren't causing more of a problem, a safety concern, in my opinion, of running into the house of someone trying to get into that
Well, I will note
far
that
spot of it.
it's 10 feet. The drawing that you shown on the screen, that driveway, the setback from the house to the property line, the proposed addition to the property line, is 10 feet. It's bigger,
Right.
More generous than the minimum required driveway width of 8 feet.
No. I agree with that, Joseph. I'm talking about the spot that's on the bottom of the screen, that second part of the existing garage. I'm concerned more of just someone they got to get out of the garage first and then start to try and get towards the driveway. That's my only thought and concern. I'm just bringing up a question if the petitioner had any problems, or no, they've came out with that thought and they've already looked at that and they said, no, we can't live with that. We've got to have it all the second story like this is or nothing.
Mr. Kroll.
Yes, I've been kind of waiting here to hear what practical difficulties you have in us to approve this. I see a lot of wants here. I don't really see, or I haven't heard any practical difficulties in which we have the ability to grant variance from. So have you looked at this at all? There are 4 criteria you're supposed to meet, and I haven't really hit one of them.
The practical difficulty is when my kids grow up and are bathing themselves, we're going to have 4 people trying to use the bathroom at the same time. Right now, with the floor plan, how we tried to design it with adding a second bathroom, keeping it a four-bedroom layout, and there just wasn't space for it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Ms. Zukin?
I really can't tell from this drawing that we got, or from the overhead view. Will your house be going further back than the other houses on both sides of you?
There, we do have a land survey if you want to, that shows where the structures are next to me. If we could access that.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
There was a land survey attached that shows where the structures is, if you want to look at that drawing. So it will come just a little bit, like I said. We have talked to our neighbors. The neighbor to the south is the one that I believe wrote to the city. Our neighbors to the north are currently renters, but they had no objections when we told them about this kind of stuff. And then the neighbor directly behind us, our garages are on sides of the corner of the lap, so there's really no visual issues for him.
All right, not seeing any other questions. Is anybody prepared to take action? Mr. Kroll?
Yes, I will make a motion to deny this.
We have a motion by Mr. Kroll. Mr. Opak?
I'll support for discussion's sake.
All right, Mr. Kroll, the floor is yours.
Thank you. This falls into, I really try not to ever vote yes on anything that is expanding a non-conforming situation unless there's a strong hardship, a practical difficulty presented. Children grow up, move out. The children are not a practical difficulty. Well, they are. We have to pay for them their whole lives. But in reality, from our position, children, trees, grandparents, parent, none of those are really practical difficulties. Because when we award a variance with this property, we're giving it to it for the life of the property, and we don't really have the ability to turn back then. So then you start to look at, okay, it's not much over right now, but we're going to expand it another 4%. And then the question really becomes, what are we as a board doing here? Our job is to try to bring things more into compliance than allowing people without practical difficulties to expand it. So for those reasons, I don't think that this should be done.
Mr. Opak.
Everybody, everything they want, but I think as a board, we have a commitment not to do that.
I'm torn, but going through the practical difficulties list, I agree with Alan. People, stuff, trees are not practical difficulties. So going through the non-use variances, this chapter restriction unreasonably prevents the owner from using the property as permitted use. Nope, they're currently living there as a family. The variance would do substantial justice to the applicant as well as the other property owners. That one could be argued, yes, it would. C, the plight of the landowner is due to the unique circumstance of the property. The property is already over its amount and they're pushing it farther. They don't have an oversized lot, so I don't see any practical difficulty on that one. An alleged hardship has been not created by the person presently having interest in the property. Unfortunately, they are presenting the hardship, or they are presenting the problem that they're coming before us. Granted, I can't help that their family, and I feel bad for them that their family's possibly expanding. But unfortunately, that's not part of the hardship, so I can't support the variance granting it. So I will be supporting the motion.
Does anybody have any other comments? Mr. Curtis.
Yeah, I won't be in support of the motion. You know, we live in a COVID world. Unfortunately, 10,000 Michiganders have died in this year alone from this disease, and we find people working from home more and more and more. And this is, of course, no fault of any homeowner. And it's a 3% increase, not a 4% increase, just for the sake of accuracy. And so I think this is a reasonable plan to help, deal with an unreasonable result of what's happened to our communities. And I think we're going to see this more and more. Commercial real estate is getting less and less practical. If I own a business, why would I pay for a brick and mortar to bring my employees in when I can push that cost onto my employees and have them work from home? So that fourth bedroom isn't a bedroom. It's an office that allows them to earn a living. And frankly, their employer is glad to have them do it. So my concern is the expectation that, there isn't any practical difficulty here in a world where, in fact, we are all experiencing severe practical difficulties given the pandemic that's upon all of our families.
And I'm going to go back to Mr. Kroll, then to Ms. Robinson.
Yeah, and Paul, I can appreciate that, but COVID is just like kids growing up. It's not going to be here long, and I could debate you all day long. People will go back to their offices because they always have. That's like a tree in the yard to me. If someone wants to address that, it shouldn't be our board, really. We have a 30%. We're going to 34. We're going in the wrong direction.
Ms. Robinson.
Okay. Just the hardship to me, and I'm just kind of throwing this out there, is that this house is like functional obsolescence. One bathroom in a house in today's families just doesn't work. And a lot of our historical 1920s beautiful homes that we have fit that. There's a problem when you only have one bathroom. I see that as being something that needs to be addressed. I liked the plan of what they were going to do. That's all I have. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Clapp.
I tend to agree with Ms. Robinson in the point that these are modest improvements that take, I guess, an outdated plan and make it more current, make it more modern. So it is a modest addition. I think it has pretty minimal to no impact on the surrounding community. I mean, it's hidden in the back. I think it's well integrated, well designed. It tucks in nicely to the back of the home. And to address the comment about the driveway, when I look at their existing plan right now, it does show there's a landscape bed and a staircase there. So I see there's really no difference. The addition is going to go up to that point anyway. So I really see no difference in the driveway approach or how they're going to navigate the vehicles in and out. So I actually think it's a good plan. I think the neighbors support it. And I just think it's a modest addition that will give them a bit of extra space for their family to modernize the home.
Let me go to Ms. Anderson.
Can I ask the petitioner if they considered bumping out the dormers on the second floor to give them the extra area space that they want, extra bathroom?
Well, that's what we originally tried to do. Is we were going to make a gable roof off the back so that we could bring the total upstairs flush with the bottom. And we went over with the architect a few different designs, none of which really fit all the necessities that we wanted up on the second story. Things would be cramped. We could put a fourth bedroom in that layout, but it would be tiny enough where, future buyers might even argue not a true size of a bedroom. In order to keep closet sizes, in order to keep 2 bathrooms and have little space around them, we decided that we had to do a little bit of a bump out on the top.
Do you have a basement that you could put? I'm assuming this fourth bedroom is you're looking for an office space. Is that it, or is it? I mean, do you have room in your basement to do
office
some
and potential
altercations? What was that? I didn't hear you.
We have a, I guess you call it a Michigan. We have an unfinished Michigan basement where the ductwork, because it didn't originally have any ductwork, that runs across the furnace is in the center and the ductwork runs across. So we can't even walk through the basement, or at least I can't, without a room down there or put a bathroom downstairs. It just really wouldn't work out with our house the way the basement is.
So,
any other comments? Well, I will not be supporting the motion. Oh, Mr. Gavin, you were in queue. My mistake. Go ahead, sir.
I was just going to echo the comments from Mr. Klatt and Ms. Robinson. I'm not in support of this motion. I think this is a good plan, and I would approve it.
And I was going to say the same thing. I will not be supporting the motion to deny. I think this plan is very modest. I think they've taken what they have to work with. They haven't overreached. And, you know, I've never made no secret about my mindset. If somebody's going to reach in their pocket, spend a whole lot of money to make the dream happen in Royal Oak, I say thank you. So I will be supporting the motion to deny. Or I will not be supporting the motion to deny, excuse me. All right, not seeing any other comments, I will go ahead and start the roll call vote. I'll start with Ms. Anderson.
I am going to.
And again, this is the motion to deny.
I know.
Okay.
I'm going to reluctantly deny, not support it. So I'm in favor of what they want to do. Not helping.
So you're. It's been a long day. Ms. Zukin.
Yes.
Pretty good.
All right. I vote no. I will not be supporting the motion to deny. Mr. Ophak?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
No.
Mr. Kroll?
Yes.
Mr. Gavin?
No.
Ms. Robinson?
No.
And Mr. Klatt?
No.
All right. So if I did my math correctly, that passes 6-3. Is that what you have, Mr. Murphy? The motion to deny fails?
The motion to deny fails. 3 votes were in favor, 6 votes against.
So now we need a motion in the affirmative?
Yes, please.
All right. Mr. Curtis, I see your hand.
Yeah, I move to approve the variances as asked.
All right. And do I see a second? I see a second from Mr. Klatt. Mr. Curtis, anything you want to add?
Yeah, we've talked about it, the functional obsolescence, so no, I don't have anything else to add.
All right, then I'll go in reverse order, and this time the motion is to allow the variances. Mr. Klatt?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Gavin?
Aye.
Mr. Kroll?
No.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Ophak?
No.
I vote yes. Ms. Zukin?
No.
And Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
All right. So the motion passes 6-3, and we certainly thank you for your time.
Thank you so
Thank
much for your
you.
time.
All right. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Mr.
Yes.
For the next item, I don't really have anybody in the waiting room that matches the 2 names that I was given, but I do have 3 people in the waiting room who aren't on the list anywhere that I can see. As a practical matter, would we like to admit those 3 people, identify them, and see what matter they're here for?
I believe that I'm looking at the
Well, the next one, I'm supposed to have Denise.
yes.
I'm supposed to have a W.R. Dawson, or I'm supposed to have someone whose email is Signature Woodward, or I'm supposed to have a Lisa Mills. I have a lot of choices, but unfortunately in the waiting room, I have someone, Lisa Robinson. I have iPad that is not identified, and I have Janet Sophie, S-O-F-Y. And of course, the Lisa Robinson and Janet Sophie match none of these. And the iPad, I can't possibly know who it is, and I have no way to contact them. If it's a phone number, I text them to ask who they are. But so I just want to know what you would like to do about this. Would you like me to admit them and we can find out what case they're here with? Or do you want to, because I can't communicate with them that way in the waiting room, unfortunately. I only have the function to send a message to all of them, and there's no function for them to answer me back on that.
Well, I mean, we need to keep the agenda going, so let's bring them in. If they're not here for that right case, then we'll remove them and skip the item, I suppose, or table it till the end. Mr.
Okay.
Murphy?
That's acceptable.
Okay. All right, then I'm going to admit Lisa Robinson, Janet Sophie, and the person who is iPad 46.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, perhaps you could ask, start down the line of our new participants and ask them which cases they're.
Exactly. Ms. Robinson, which case are you here for?
For Denise Dawson, do you want the case? I don't have the case number.
No, that's fine. You're here for the case for Denise Dawson. Is that the case?
Yeah,
Okay.
I am.
All right. And ma'am, you've got your.
I'm with National
let me ask two more people. Hang on one second. Ma'am, your iPad, you're identified as iPad 46. Are you also here for the Dawson case? You're muted, ma'am.
Are you talking to me?
I am. Which case are you here for, ma'am?
Do I keep getting muted? There we go. Denise Dawson.
No, Mr. Robinson, we want you to remain muted. We're going on to the next person to ask. Thank you.
Now, ma'am, your device has you identified as iPad 46. Which case are you here for?
Oh, that's me. My name is Denise Dawson. I'm here.
Okay, you're Denise Dawson. Awesome. And
Yeah.
finally, Janet Sophie, what case are you here for?
Gotta love Zoom.
I cannot wait till we're no longer doing this.
Gotta love it.
Ms. Sophie, can you hear me?
Her audio's not working.
Yeah, her audio does appear to be working well. I'm going to go ahead and just read this into the record. We'll get this thing moving, and hopefully we'll figure out which case Ms. Sophie is here for. Oh, okay. Or you can just do that. All right. Moving right along to item E5, case number 201231, public hearing on the appeal of Denise Dawson, petitioner and owner for the following variances. There are actually 4 of them, so I'll just go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Murphy and let him go through each one.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen with you. I think that'll help with some of the logic in this request. The petitioner's property is located on Garden, which is west of Beaumont. It's south of 13 Mile between 13 and Webster. This property is 80 feet wide by 120 feet and has a lot area 10,000 square feet. It's comprised of 2 originally platted lots. Each of those 2 lots, each lot rather, was platted at 40 feet in width. The petitioner is proposing to demolish all the structures on the site so that they can create 2 vacant single-family home sites. The lots, as shown on the image, hopefully you can see in front of you, that the lots on the west side of the street were platted at 40 feet in width and a depth of 125 feet for lot areas of 5,000 square feet. The lots on the east side of the block were platted at 80 feet wide and 275 feet in depth. They're much larger pieces of property. Any new lot needs to be, new interior lot needs to be at least 50 feet in width, 100 feet in depth, and 6,000 square feet in lot area. There is a provision in the zoning ordinance. We generically refer to it as a compatibility provision. And what we're able to do is look at a particular block. In this instance, it's this block of Garden between 13 Mile Road and Judson. We look at the 2 lots that the petitioner is creating, and we compare them to the other developed existing lots on the block. This particular lot, to split it and go back to the original plat of 40 feet in width, it would be similar, it would be larger than the majority of the lots on the block in terms of the width and the depth, but it's just shy of meeting the requirement for being similar, at least 50% or more in terms of the lot area. And that's due to the fact that the opposite side of the street, again, is platted at 275 feet deep. So it's 70.1%. The width is 70.1%. The depth is 54.1%. And the lot area that they're proposing is only 45.8 feet. And again, it has to be at least 50% or more in order to meet that compatibility provision. So the petitioner is seeking variances in front of you today from the minimum lot width and the lot depth requirement. They either need to meet that compatibility provision with depth and area, or they don't qualify for it and they need to seek the variances from the standards. In this case, 50 feet in width and 6,000 square feet in lot area.
Great. I see Mr. Opek.
So, Mr. Murphy, I would be correct if we happen to grant the split, then that theoretically could create a cascading effect where all the other large lots on this block could come before and just get administratively split after this.
You're referring to the east side of the street or the west side of the street?
The current side of the street, the street that it's on, that would be the west side, I guess.
Well, there are very few lots left.
Yeah.
Right, but
It's the
theoretically,
east side.
That's the side of the street, whether.
okay.
Mr. Clapp.
I sometimes struggle with those calculations because those are area based. I get that. But we look at width. So when I did the math, there's 25 houses that we're comparing, and 17 of those are 40 feet wide. So that's about, in that manner, 68% of them are about 40 feet wide. From a width standpoint, I know it's not area, but from a width standpoint, it would be 40 feet is the predominant width on the street compared to the larger. And I just know sometimes when we talk about these, it's more about the feel of the neighborhood and the width. You know, what is the presence on the street with some of these wider lots? But in general, 40 feet is more the norm than the wider lots. Just wanted to bring that up from a width standpoint versus area.
Any other questions for Mr. Murphy at this point?
As I noted, it needs to meet all of those provisions.
I understand.
In order for us to administratively approve it. But you're correct in that it is wise to view it from that perspective.
Joseph?
Ms. Anderson.
Joseph, do you have any history as to why that side of the block were 40-foot lots platted and the other side it was a mixed bag?
No, I don't. That particular neighborhood, everything west of Beaumont, there's some very large, very deep lots. There was, if I go back and look, there was the thought of putting another street down the middle of many of those. That's one of the reasons they were platted at 275 feet deep. If we took the back halves of those lots and we would be able to put a street down the back half of them and split them off and make a whole bunch more lots. That never occurred. And as you may well know, that area of the city has a lot of flooding issues too. And some of those deeper lots assist with retaining some water due to heavy clay presence in the spring, retains a lot of water. So a lot of those deep lots, people don't really get to use them very often due to the fact that they flood over.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Murphy at this point? All right. Not seeing any. Ms. Dawson or Ms. Robinson, which one of you would like to go first?
I can go first. I've lived on that property since 1994, and I have watched through the years identical size properties being split, and the end result has been very pleasant housing with the two lots up from the parent lot. So I feel, there you go. I feel that it would be an enhancement to the neighborhood to have new homes there. And I know that there's a great demand in Royal Oak for new construction. So I think it would be a very positive development.
Excellent. Thank you. Ms. Robinson, anything you want to add?
Yeah, going back to, and thank you, this has been a great education for myself. Going back to this particular block, I will say, in talking about the 80 feet wide by the 275 deep, just in her particular block, there's only 5 properties right now that currently are the 275, and then there's 4 that are 125, and then the remainder of the 27, that equals 9. The remainder 18 is they're 40 foot wide by 125. I did reach out. Normally I'd go out and knock on some doors, but during the pandemic, not wise. So I sent out a couple of letters just to get a vibe for the block and the community and what their reactions were. And I did receive 20% response in response to my letter, which is good. Typically with the letter response, it's usually 1 to 2%. So I can speak just to that as far as the neighborhood wanting to go for it. So that's it. And thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, does anybody have any questions for the petitioners at this point?
Fine.
Yeah, Mr. Crowley, yes, sir.
I'm just curious what the relationship of you two. I assume that you're the homeowner and.
I'm the real estate agent representing her.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Failed to mention that the board did receive 2 written comments that were added to the end of the report. So for your information, we did receive 2. You did receive two comments.
Thank you, sir. All right, not seeing any other questions for staff or for the petitioners. Is anybody prepared to take action? Mr. Clapp.
I will make a motion to approve the variances.
We have a motion, all 4?
Yes.
All right, a motion to approve all 4 variances as requested. Is there a second? And we have a second by Mr. Gavin. Mr. Clapp?
Like I said before, I think in this case, the more important metric may be the lot width. And I think from that standpoint, 40 feet is more the norm on this street. So I do not think that, I think that 2 new homes on the street would be compatible and would do the street justice. So I'm in support.
Mr. Gavin, anything you'd like to answer?
It's a little unusual because you've got like, and I was very torn on this, but I am leaning towards approving, so that's why I supported. The one half of the street is, you know, the 125 depth, and then the other side is so much deeper, and it's just a very unusual area. So you know, I know that factors into the to how the lot or to the area, but I don't think I tend to agree with Mr. Klatt that the width is the predominant factor here, and the 40-foot width is the norm for that street.
Thank you. All right, any other comments on this motion at this point? Ms. Anderson?
I won't be supporting it. I'm really concerned that we're taking all of our historically platted properties that were platted probably for much smaller homes that will be going than what will be going on these properties. And to say that, I mean, sometimes you have to look at the whole area, maybe not just one side of the street, look at the other side of the street, see what the area feels like. It has the potential for the lots to remain the way they are right now. I don't see a reason or a hardship to split them up. And every time somebody goes back and say, well, it was originally platted that way, I'll say, well, then why do we even need to have a variance that says new lots are supposed to be 50 feet wide? And I think it's because we have bigger homes. We have more things. We want bigger garages. And so I won't be supporting it.
Ms. Robinson, did I see your hand first?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Mr. Crow.
Yes, I won't be supporting this either. Basically, we're looking for 50-foot lots. Yes, at one point they were 40-foot lots. They're not 40-foot lots now. I could envision all the 80-foot lots across the street all being turning into 40-foot lots, and we're certainly opening up to do that. So I think if you, as Ms. Anderson said, if you start to multiply it out and look at a bunch of 40-foot lots and a bunch of 2,500 square foot new homes, that gets pretty congested in there, I think.
Mr. Gavin, then Mr. Ofac.
Just to respond to Mr. Kroll's comment, those 40-foot lots across the street could split right now because they meet all the requirements. They meet the width. They're above 50% on the width. Yeah, for that.
They're 80 feet, so they couldn't build 2 lots out of them without.
But they could split. I mean, that's what a number of those lots are. They doing that. I'm assuming we would do the same analysis, and maybe we could get confirmation on that. But it would be over 50% for the width. It would be over 50% for the area, and it would be over 50% for the depth. So they could be split right now as is.
Correct.
Mr. Ofac.
I agree with what Leslie has said, as well as Alan, that some of the hardship has not been presented that would require this split. And personally, like I've always said, like to have a nice variety of different lot sizes in here. We keep on splitting everything. Eventually, there's not going to be any large lot sizes left because we just keep on allowing it. The 50-foot there is for a reason. That was before we started all these giant homes. I mean, squeezing 2 homes on the 40-foot, yeah. Is it going to be 40 feet just like all the rest of them? Yeah, but it'll seem a little bit closer to the lot lines than the current ones are because they're smaller homes that are there currently. So that's my concern. We're just going to we're going to cause a cascading effect potentially in this area.
If I could just remind the board to focus on the practical difficulties on this and not the hardship. Thanks.
Ms. Zuka, did I see your hand?
Yeah. This one I am torn on because I go into these thinking I like larger lots, but as I drove up Garden, and I know we don't consider the blocks to the south, but they were all 40-foot lots. But as Ms. Anderson said, they're small houses. So that's where I have a difficulty on this one because I don't see the practical difficulty to the owner as to why they have to split, but it feels like it would fit within the neighborhood. So I'm still not sure.
Well, I will be supporting the motion. This is predominantly a 40-foot wide neighborhood. I actually used to live over on Harvard. My neighbors across the street had those 40-foot by 275-foot lots. And Mr. Murphy is completely correct that a lot of it is unusable because of flooding over there. I think that this will fit with the character of the neighborhood. I think it's consistent with what the neighborhood is predominantly already at. So I have no issue supporting this. Anybody else? Ms. Robinson.
I'll talk now. I'm really torn on this because my first instinct is not to keep dividing up these lots and smaller lots and the Bigfoot homes. It's just, that's not, I just don't, we're losing our green space in the city of Royal Oak. In my opinion, it's not a good thing. However, the 40-foot lot, I mean, I think that's going to fit. And also, I'm all about like the flavor of the neighborhood. I think, this might be good for the neighborhood to have 2 new houses in there. I'm torn on this one.
Mr. Gavin, then Ms. Anderson.
Just a quick comment on the multiple people have mentioned the size of the houses. I mean, if there's a large house that's going to be built on there, if it needed a variance, it would have to come back before us. It would have to come back before this board. As long as it's being built within the zoning ordinance, it wouldn't need to come before us. If we want to encourage smaller houses, then we need to change the zoning ordinance to encourage smaller houses rather than allow the size houses that we currently allow. So that's my only thought there.
I think I had Ms. Anderson in queue.
Well, I guess I'll just kind of add with the fact that the city is having issues with water runoff. As the more we build up, the more water issues we're going to have. We're going to be taxed on that, and maybe the people who in the past thought of these 50-foot lots had that in mind. I don't think everything needs to be split. In this case, I don't think this one needs to be split. I think that it would serve just as well if they didn't want that house that's there and they want to build a brand new one, they have the land and the lot size to be able to do so. And then we've had some beautiful new homes that are on 80-foot lots.
All right, any other comments? Mr. Kroll.
Yeah, I would just ask my fellow board members to remember that we're here for practical difficulties. And there are 4 of them which we are to judge by. You're really supposed to be able to pass all 4. I haven't really heard one really that I would consider a practical difficulty to approve this. So it's great to approve everybody. I mean, we'd love to approve everybody who comes in front of us. Everybody's going to get a better deal out of it. And I'm sure this is a great deal for the homeowner and certainly for the realtor. I'm not sure that the rest of the neighborhood would see it that way. As a matter of fact, we've gotten 2 correspondences and they're both negative. So if we got 2, I don't know what the rest of the neighborhood's feeling, but I can't find 4 practical difficulties. I can't find 1 practical difficulty. So I'm not sure what we're voting on here.
All right, any other comments? All right, then I will go ahead and do the roll call vote. I will start with, hold on, let me get to that page. And this is a motion to approve the 4 variances. Mr. Clapp?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
No.
Mr. Gavin?
Yes.
Mr. Kroll?
No.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Ofac?
No.
I vote yes. Ms. Zukin?
No.
And Ms. Anderson?
No.
All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the motion to allow the 4 variances has failed 5-4, if I'm doing my math correctly. Is that what you came up with, Mr. Murphy?
Yeah.
The motion fails 4-5.
4-5, excuse me, correct. All right, does somebody want to make a motion in the alternative? Mr. Kroll?
Yes, I will make a motion to deny.
All 4?
All 4.
All right, we have a motion
I'll support.
and we have a second from Ms. Anderson. Any additional discussion? All right, so this is the motion to deny. Ms. Anderson?
I support.
Ms. Zukin?
Yes.
I vote no. Mr. Ofac?
Aye.
Mr. Curtis?
No.
Mr. Kroll?
Yes.
Mr. Gavin?
No.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
And Mr. Clapp?
No.
All right, so the motion to deny does pass 5-4. All right, thank you for your time, folks.
Thank you.
All right, so moving right along here. That takes us to item E6, which is case number 201232, public hearing on the appeal of Woman's Excellence petitioner and Chanjopkin LLC. I hope I spelled that correctly. Owner for the following variance: waive the requirement prohibiting a permanent structure within a residential accessory off-street parking lot to install a carport structure over 8 parking spaces within the accessory off-street parking lot located at 320604 through 32686 Woodward Avenue and residential off-street parking lot. Mr. Murphy.
Real quick, Mr. Chair, I need to recuse myself from this case as our company provided architectural services for the project by the petitioner.
Okay.
Thank you.
All righty.
Just a quickie.
Mr. Murphy, does Ms. Schwanger need to remove him entirely for the time being? Oh, it looks like she did just that. Okay.
I just have to go give my mother a pill. I'll be right back.
All right. So then let's go over to Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy, we cannot hear you at all.
Thank you. This is comprised of 2 sites. The commercial portion, which fronts along Woodward Avenue, is a 2-story mixed-use building. It has a medical office with ground floor medical office and a retail store with 2 residential units on the upper level. It has an accessory off-street parking lot located on the east side of the public alley. This site, the parking lot site, is in the 1-family residential zoning district. And parking lots related to a commercial business are regarded as an accessory parking lot. It's one of the few uses that requires this, not only the planning commission's approval, but the city commission's approval. And this was approved by the planning commission. I will go to one of the photographs to give you a perspective of how it looks right now. Surface parking lot, and the petitioner is proposing to construct a permanent structure, carports, for 8 of the designated parking spaces. And because it's an accessory parking lot, part of the city commission's review, and the city commission doesn't have the ability to allow a permanent structure such as carports in an accessory parking lot. So they deferred the matter to, as appropriate, they deferred it to the Zoning Board of Appeals, so that the petitioner is requesting a variance in order to put up carports over 8 of the parking spaces. And I'll refer to the architectural drawings for a bit of clarity on the design of the carports. I'll also note that the board did receive 2 public comments that are included in your packet. And I'll skip over to the architectural drawings. So the carports would, I'll zoom in on the accessory parking lot. This hatched area illustrates where the petitioner proposes to have the black aluminum construction material carports. And there is a cross-section elevation of the carport as well.
I can't hear a thing.
All right, well, first of all, any questions for Mr. Murphy? And was there something that you needed to explain that you couldn't hear because he was kind of fading in and out? Anybody?
I guess, Clyde.
Mr. Crowe, yes, sir.
Yeah, why is this not allowed, Joe?
Yes, the zoning ordinance has some specific language which allows for certain elements in an accessory parking lot, but it doesn't allow for a permanent structure like a garage or a carport. Therefore, it does need a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Mr. Ofac.
Like some of those other apartments that we've seen before, not come before us, but people have been abutted with them with carports. Those came before that portion was in the ordinance, probably. Or
more logically, many of those sites, the parking lot is not in a zoning district, not in the one residential zoning district, but perhaps it's in an appropriate district where it does allow. So if this portion of the property were in the general business zoning district, it could allow for a permanent structure like a carport or a garage. But because it's in the 1-family residential zoning district, there's very specific provisions that allow for surface parking lots and some minor ancillary items associated with a surface parking lot. But it's really intended to be a surface parking lot and not a parking lot with a garage on it or a storage building or a carport.
so basically, if that parking lot wasn't for the residential zone like it is now, and the Woodward business zone, this wouldn't even be before us, correct?
Quite possibly.
Okay.
Mr. Curtis.
Yeah, Mr. Murphy, and if this were to be approved for a carport, it would not allow that structure to be walled up and turned into a garage at some later date without further variance, correct?
That's not what the petitioner is proposing. And so, yes, the planning commission reviewed it and approved it. City commission reviewed it and approved it. It would have to comply with the design that they've gotten, right, their illustration that they've gotten approval for. Mm-hmm. Circle back to the conversation about an accessory parking lot. We have a fair number of them up and down, mostly Woodward Avenue. And they're really intended for businesses that have, we'll say, daytime customers or employees. They're parking there, and the parking lots are generally almost always empty at night. This is a little different scenario, and I think the petitioner can provide you with some greater insight as to who will be using who they intend to construct the carports for. As I noted, there are 2 residential dwelling units on this property, and the petitioner may have some logical correlation with that.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Murphy? Not seeing any, I do see that the petitioner is present. Sir, the floor is yours. Tell us about your plan.
Hi, so the building right now houses Women's Excellence, which is a medical office. And then it also has 2 larger residential condos that are about 3,500 square feet, I think, and 2,900 and some square feet respectively. They have very high ceilings, and they were built like in the Chicago loft kind of ideal. And that's why you see on the drawing or on the picture that you have, you know, the fire escape going up to the top. And so the mindset is that these are kind of higher end interior finishes. And the hardship here is that we have parking, but you know, people that would rent ours want to park where they can't even have covered parking. Now we're not, you know, we realize we're not going to build a garage, but we want to provide them some level of covered parking for them and potentially their guests. So that's kind of why that's the number one thing that everybody asks is that, well, there's no covered parking. You know, they're not going to, you know, park on the street, of course, and so forth. So that's why we're here. You know, we're going to build something nice. The building, I think, has come out very, very nice. And subsequent to this approach, we can't even finish the front of the building either. Just, you know, there's been a kind of moratorium on any permits for the building, and we have the front of the building ready to go as soon as we, you know, resolve this issue. And then we will move forward and finish the front space in the building, and then we will finish the carports, and this project will be done. And I think it's added well to the city. I mean, everybody that comes to our office, I work in that office 2 days a week, and everybody that comes to it, you know, comments positively. They think it looks nice on the street, and it's you know, a great spot.
Excellent. Any questions for the petitioner, Ms. Anderson?
Did the petitioner happen to speak with the people that we have 2 letters from, the neighbors that are against these? And then I have another question after he answers that.
Sure.
You know, I didn't know there was 2 letters, I guess, against it. I really haven't, I thought the neighbors were pretty happy. They've used my parking lot from time to time. Sure, and they've asked me to do that, and I've allowed them to do so. I'm not sure, I can't really speak to that. They've never brought anything to my attention that said that it was negative, and we designed them so that they're in the middle of the parking lot, not abutting the wall. We built a very, very nice brick wall. I matched the brick on the wall to the property adjacent to it, and I put you know, I put arborvitae along the property towards the south of the property along that wall. So I mean, I think we've definitely done everything that we could do to make it, you know, good for those people. So I'm not sure. I didn't see these letters. I apologize.
And then my second question. You mentioned condos. Are these 2 condos that you'll be selling, or are they rental? They're rental units. They would be a minimum of 1-year leases. I apologize. I mean, I know that makes a difference from a ZBA perspective. They're you know, the building is owned in mass. That will be rented out, the rented space.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Mr. Gavin?
So I'm sorry if I missed this. There's 2 units there now. Are you adding units, or is it still just 2 units that'll be there?
No, it's 2 units.
Okay, because you're asking to cover 8 parking spaces, right?
And I think the idea was that, you know, I mean, I really gave this to the architect to do. The idea is that there's kind of a block of of stuff that we could put covered parking right in the center. And, I think that what we will, ultimately do for sure is give each one of those units 2 covered spaces for sure. And then probably make the other 2 guest parking for
Okay, thank you.
I think I saw Mr. Ofak's hand.
that. So, that's the
Yeah.
idea.
Am I right in assuming that the current brick wall there is about 6 feet high? Different height. I'm just trying to.
I believe it's, I apologize.
What'd you say? Sorry, you cut out.
Oh, it's, I think it's only about 3 feet high.
No, I meant the higher one that's right up against the house.
I believe it's 6 feet, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for the petition at this point? All right, not seeing any, I'll bring it back to this side of the table. Is anybody prepared to take action? Mr. Kroll.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve this.
Motion by Mr. Kroll.
I'll support for discussion's sake.
And we have a second by Mr. Ofak. Mr. Kroll.
This is kind of an unusual one for us. So it's, as you put it through the normal criteria, it doesn't, I don't think it really holds well. I mean, they're luxury apartments. I guess the hardship is we live in Michigan and the weather sucks. And in fact, people want to cover for their house, especially when they're starting to rent 3,000, high 2,000 square foot places. So I don't know how else to apply anything to this other than seems reasonable.
Mr. Ofak, anything you want to add?
Well, this one I'm a little torn on, and I wanted to hear the discussion on this because I do agree with the practical difficulty of if you're a tenant, it'd be nice to have something for covered parking. And I do appreciate actually that they pull it away from that wall. Actually, if that wall was 8 feet, and I had a feeling it wasn't, it'd be a lot easier to say, well, you're just seeing a couple feet above the carport. Now you're seeing almost half the carport, which I can understand the person who's in the lot right next door looks unsightly, as well as the lots across the street. How much more unsightly does it look compared to just cars sitting there? I don't know. That's everyone's own personal opinion. So I'm trying to figure out whether or not that would give the carport would create substantial justice towards the area and making it look better versus just cars sitting there. I don't know. From indications of what the design looks like, as well as what they're planning on doing with the rest of the building, it's not going to look like the Woodward Apartments carport that's behind those apartments. It's abutting, that's on Woodward over by 12 Mile. That's abutting all those homes that are just to the east of it. So it looks like it's in better shape, but it's one of those things of it's just hard for me to figure out, and I want to hear other people's thoughts on this actually does make the area better, because it definitely helps the people who are going to be renting.
Mr. Kroll.
Yeah, I think it's one of the first times I can remember in a long time that we had a Woodward property that didn't need a parking variance. So that's kind of a plus for it.
Ms. Robinson.
That was kind of goes into my question, and I don't know if this, but how many parking spots do you need for the medical office? And then you're going to have 4 more spots that are like reserved for the tenants. Does that take away from the number they needed for the medical office? You just were talking about parking variances, so that was my question.
I mean, at this point, there aren't any parking deficiencies that we are discussing, so we really are just need to stick to the carport itself.
Gotcha.
Mr. Gavin.
Yeah, I'm like struggling on this one. I definitely agree with Mr. Kroll's comment that it's probably a little on the weak side when it comes to the practical difficulties, especially since, I mean, me personally, I don't have a garage. I park outside. I've been parking outside for years, you know, and I know a lot of people in apartments that, you know, even if they have a covered parking spot, they often don't park in it just because it's more convenient for them, you know. So but then again, these are luxury apartments, and that's what they're being sold as. So it's really, I'm just struggling with it. I probably will end up coming down as a no on this, but you know, if you know, I guess that's where I'm at.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and chime in. I will not be supporting the motion to approve this. I think this is really one of those cases when you look at the houses that immediately abut a parking area such as this that is inside of a residentially zoned area. I don't think we're doing substantial justice to the homeowners to force them to stare at a carport, whereas if it was in the general business zoning, it would be allowed, but in the residential, it's not allowed. And I think it's not allowed for good reasons. And I think that we need to consider the plight of the homeowners that are going to have to stare at this. So with that in mind, I cannot support this motion. Does anybody else have any comments? Ms. Zukin.
Yeah, I follow what you're saying and I agree with it. My only concern here is that they're allowed to construct an attendant building. And I think that would be less attractive for the neighboring homeowners. But that's not what's before us. So that's why I'm torn on this.
All right. Any other comments? Ms. Anderson?
Well, I too am torn, and I guess I'm just going to defer to the neighbors that it's going to directly affect and how they put in their comments to say that they did not want it to happen.
All right. Not seeing anybody else. We have a motion on the table to approve. I'm going to go ahead and start the roll call vote. Mr. Klatt had to recuse himself. Ms. Robinson?
No.
Mr. Gavin?
No.
Mr. Kroll?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Ofak?
No.
I vote no. Ms. Zukin?
No.
And finally, Ms. Anderson.
No.
All right, so the motion to approve does fail 2-6, I believe. So does somebody want to make a motion in the alternative? Mr. Gavin?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Gavin. Support, anybody?
I'll support.
We have a second from Mr. Ofak. Any additional discussion before I do the roll call vote? All right. So this is a motion to deny. Ms. Anderson?
Support.
Ms. Zukin?
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Ofak?
Aye.
Mr. Curtis?
No.
Mr. Kroll?
No.
Mr. Gavin?
Aye.
And Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
All right. And again, Mr. Klatt did have to recuse himself, so the motion to deny does pass 6-2. Thank you for your time, sir. All right, so where are we at now? That moves us along to, is Jeff back? There's Mr. Klatt. All right, so that moves us to case, which is, item E7, case number 201233, public hearing on the appeal of Detroit Sweat LLC petitioner and Kemp Brothers Investments LLC owner for the following variance. A, to waive 7 of the minimum required 12 off-street parking spaces to permit conversion of a former print shop to a fitness center located at 4921 Delamere Avenue. Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy, we cannot hear you, sir.
Okay. This site is received the site plan approval from the Planning Commission at their November meeting. And if I can bring up on the screen, it's a one-story industrial building, and the petitioner is proposing to reuse it for for an indoor fitness personal training facility. It has a parking lot that is able to, and I'll refer to the site plan, the parking lot is able to accommodate not all of the parking spaces that are required. There are 5 parking spaces, and based on the usable floor area of the building for a fitness center, it's required to have 12 off-street parking spaces. Therefore, the petitioner is seeking a waiver from that difference. Again, they're required to have 12, they have 5, so they're seeking a variance of 7 in order to establish a fitness center. The petitioner can discuss their particular business plan and how it may differ from a traditional fitness center, and they provide you with a floor plan as well as a business plan of operation.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy at this point? Ms. Murphy, can you switch screens, please? No, thank you, sir. Whose hand did I see? Mr. Opek.
Yes. Sometimes it gets into the little weeds area, but if we approve this, this only works for this condition, not if all of a sudden he decided to take on more clients and not do what the business model says that Addie does now. Granted, the city wouldn't know that really. I just want to make sure, right? You're muted.
Joe, you're muted.
There we go. You guys hear me?
The floor plan does allow them to have an open gym or stationary equipment, unless the board made it a contingency that it be personal training based on their plan of operation with some logical connection to your contingent. I would indicate that no, staff wouldn't limit it if this business owner, if she did personal training and it switched hands to a place that had stationary bikes every 6 feet apart from each other in the near future. No, unless you made a specific contingency that it's a personal training establishment and limited as such, they don't show any fitness equipment on their floor plan, just an open floor plan.
Ms. Anderson.
Joseph, is there any off-street parking in this area?
There is some parking on Delamere. Many of the buildings are similar and parking lots are similar in nature to this particular site. So there's been a competition. There's a fair amount of traffic. There is available on-street parking.
Any other questions for Mr. Murphy? All right, not seeing any hands. Is the petitioner present?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi.
Tell us about your plan.
So my name is Chelsea. I am the owner of Detroit Sweat. I'm particularly looking at this building for personal training and small group training, anywhere between 5 to 6 people per hour. So it is a smaller based model that I'm going to be doing with the off-street parking as well, and the variance for the parking off-site as well. I'm looking probably max 10 per hour. That is, like I said, my hour, or that's my model. This whole parking lot obviously is going to be all ripped out, all redone, as well as the outside, inside. It's going to get a facelift times 10. So what you're seeing right now is obviously the old print shop, but this these parking blocks too that you can see on the screen, I'm not even sure how much those can move based on the other people to the north of me. But like I said, it is all going to be small based, appointment based. So I'm going to know when people are coming, when people are going. And that's kind of my model going into this. I love that it's a standalone. I'm not having an open gym concept where people, like I said, can come and go. It is going to be strictly, like I said, that small group and personal training.
Excellent. Any questions for the petitioner? No, doesn't look like it. All right. I'll bring it back to this side of the table. Mr. Kroll.
Yes, I will make a motion to approve this.
Motion by Mr. Kroll.
Alan, will you? Sorry.
Well, the second by Mr. Curtis. Mr. Ofak, did you have a question, sir?
Yeah, I was going to say, did you want to stipulate it's for just personal training or leave it as it is?
You know, I have a son who's a personal trainer. I've invested in this business with him and other people. I don't think there's a personal trainer in the world that wouldn't love to have a parking problem, although really none of them do, because it's not a supermarket. Doing small classes and individual training doesn't bring many cars. So even the ones the Fuse 45s and some of them that are doing more group things, never had a parking problem. So I don't know that we can point to one gym in Royal Oak that does personal training that has a parking problem. So it looked to me like there's plenty of places to park cars in there if you got creative. So,
Mr. Curtis, anything you want to follow up with?
Yeah, I think it's similar to what Mr. Kroll said, that these small group classes are great because they're small group classes. I mean, when they get too big, they don't attract people anymore. I mean, they love this personal training. That's the point. And so I don't expect to see, 20 cars for, 5 or 6 spots.
Mr. Kroll, yes, sir.
Yeah, we approved a parking variance on Woodward for a young man that has a place called Rev Gym. Very similar kind of process. He became a chamber member, so I've kind of watched over him, and he hasn't had anywhere near a parking problem. There really hasn't been any problems at all. So I think our parking requirements in this particular case might be a little high.
Any other comments? All right, not seeing any. Well, I'll be supporting this motion. I mean, even more so because it's on Delamere. We're not abutting any neighborhoods. There's not going to be any impact to a neighborhood, people parking in front of people's residences and so forth. So I think this is a perfect fit for that neighborhood. I'm sure it'll do very well there.
Can I ask
All right.
who supported the motion?
Mr. Curtis. All right. That being said, I will go ahead and start the roll call vote. Mr. Klatt?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Gavin?
Aye.
Mr. Kroll?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Ofak?
Yes.
I vote yes. Ms. Zukin?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
All right. Motion passes unanimously. You are all set, and good luck with your business.
Thank
Good
you,
luck to you.
guys. Thank you.
All right, have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Okay, moving right along. Item E8, case number 201234. Public hearing on the appeal of BMW Car Wash DBA Jack's Car Wash. Petitioner and owner for the following variance: waive 8 of the minimum required 16 off-street parking spaces to retain the unapproved southernmost automated teller, which eliminates access to required off-street parking spaces located at 27002 through 27054 Woodward Avenue. Mr. Murphy.
Site is comprised of a car wash and a convenience store and a filling station. In 1999, the approved site plan included 2 points of entry for vehicles utilizing the automobile wash. You'll see on the aerial 2 teller stations, if you will, where an individual pulls up. As you can see, 2 vehicles. They pay and request a particular service. Both of the service lanes converge into one that enters into the building and onto the conveyor system to wash the vehicle. Directly south, in this instance, where I'm hovering over, directly south of the teller stations are parking spaces that are required dedicated to the uses on the site. The auto wash facility under the zoning ordinance standards requires 12 off-street parking spaces, and the convenience store requires 4. So that it's required to have 16 off-street parking spaces. There are 8 parking spaces in this location that help meet that minimum. More recently, the petitioner has installed, and I'll switch over to a different aerial photograph. Again, the 2 teller station locations that I had referenced in the previous aerial photograph, they've also put in a 3rd location where someone can pull up for service another aisle. The petitioner can best explain the purpose of that particular one, the customer base they're attracting. But the additional location where someone can come up, pay for the service, and then quickly enter into the stacking space to get into the auto wash. This particular additional unapproved service point, it blocks the access to these parking spaces. As you can see, if someone were lined up in this location under this little arching canopy and paying for their service, it certainly, and vehicles were stacked up, they would block the access parking spaces which are required under the ordinance. So the petitioner is proposing to retain this additional teller station, if you will, and in doing so, it eliminates access to those 8 parking spaces. So the variance request is related to waiving 8, those parking spaces, of their minimum required. I'll refer to a drawing that the petitioner provided. I heard some photographs to give you a better demonstration. This is the newer teller station that was automated teller station that was installed without approval, and you can see that it leaves a narrow space for vehicles to get in and out. Some additional perspectives, and I'll refer to their drawings. Staff did note in the report that we believe, based on their drawing, that it's possible for the petitioner to redesign portions of the site in order to retain access to these parking spaces. If the 3 teller stations were all shifted north, we believe that there's certainly plenty of space in order to accommodate a aisle to get to and from these. There were written public comments that were received by staff, and those were added to the report today. We did receive those today, and the petitioner can provide for the board their vantage point of their request.
All right, any questions for Mr. Murphy at this point? All right, not seeing any. Is the petitioner present?
I am. This is Jason Milan. Hello, everybody. Thank you for hearing us. And I have with me tonight Howard Nudell and Brian Lawson from my architectural firm to help with any questions.
Okay, well, the floor is yours right now, so tell us a little bit about the proposal and why you need this variance.
All righty. So, Howard, do you want to take this? I don't know if you're still on, Howard. Okay, so yeah, oh, there you are. Hi, Howard.
Okay, I'm sorry. I said I think Joe explained it very well. The issue is really around the vacuum spaces, because the vacuum spaces are used as a combination vacuum and parking. We've had this situation come up at other Jack's car washes around town, and there's no real reason why people don't park when they have to in the vacuum spaces if they have to go into the building for any reason. So we have created a new site plan, which we haven't seen up here on the screen yet. And it will allow for, I think, 2 more spaces at the vacuum spaces, which will ultimately give us the 12 parking spaces. I don't know if you want to consider that or take a look at that. Have you seen that, Joe, that particular plan?
I did receive an extra drawing from you. That's not the one that's included in the packet. I'll bring up for the board's, as you were referencing, I'll bring up the Google Street View image.
There you go.
Of what's happening with the carport, or rather the vacuum stations, so that the board has an understanding of where they're located and the use of them.
And we were talking about using these first couple as parking.
And I would also like to add that most of our staff does not drive. They take the bus in. So we need less than is typically needed because of that as well.
That's been historical for many, many years.
Does anybody have any questions for the petitioner at this point? Ms. Zukin, yes, ma'am.
Now, you said you were going to make the 2 spots, the vacuum spots near Woodward, permanent parking, and you're going to remove the vacuum?
No, they're a combination of parking and vacuum, and it will be signed accordingly.
So people will know they're allowed to park there and they don't have to vacuum.
Absolutely.
Yes, it actually happens all the time that people pull there and park, and it works out just fine for us.
Ms. Anderson.
What are the 3 different little entrances, the kiosks or whatever? What do they do? I mean, I've been through, but I can't remember what the yellow one is for.
Sure. So that's the auto attendant. Somehow it got called a teller on these plans, but it's more appropriate to be called an auto attendant. So what it's for, this particular one is for our Unlimited Club members. So their license plate is recognized by a camera. The system sees they're a club member. They get a certain screen that comes up just like at an ATM. The customer chooses their free wash or chooses an upgrade, and then the gate goes up and they go around. So with our but with putting in a second one, which is what our plan is to do, that'll also be for the general public, that they can use it. So it'll help process cars more quickly. It's about half the time of a human ringing these up, because we have these in at all of our places. And so in essence, that helps us keep the cars moving faster and less backups onto Woodward.
So I guess I was confused. I was thinking you were only having 3, but not you were having 4?
No. So there's 3 there. I'm sorry. I see where I stated some confusing points there. The middle one in that picture is a booth. Okay, where it says exterior only. Right. That's currently a booth. Our plan is to pull that out and put another auto attendant in right there.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And yes, so and then that's when we came to Joseph and asked for permission to do that, and we realized we never got a permit through planning to do the one that's there now, which is where all this whole parking situation came up. We had an electrical permit to do that, auto attendant, but apparently we didn't have everything we needed.
And as the parking over there to the side next to the Unlimited Club, is that employee parking for the most part?
It's all employee parking. And I know that according to the ordinance, there's not enough space there to get out, but for 3 years we've been doing it like this, and because our employees aren't coming and going all day long, it's not a problem, but there's actually enough room to get in and out there.
Okay.
Ordinance requires 20 feet. We don't have the 20 feet, but as Jason said, cars are going in and out there during the day without an issue and without a problem.
But it's not often during the day because it's not customers parking there. Even customers for the gas station, they'll typically pull up right in front of the gas station, right in front of the mini mart, or leave their car at their pump and come in. They don't park there. Only our employees park there. So you've got them coming in early morning and typically leaving late afternoon. We don't have a lot of split shifts. They pretty much work all day because they're coming in from so far away. The ones that do drive, the rest are taking the bus in.
And so your full service one, that curves quickly around and does that one seems to be the slowest lane, as I recall when I've been there.
Of course.
The other one, so will the other two automatic ones, because no one will be there, will they tell you where to go? Can you go? Is this a thing that where you would potentially cross over and then cause a traffic jam if you were a full service? Do you want full service from the club people?
Yes.
I'm just to see how all this is going to work.
Yeah, Leslie, you're absolutely right. That is how it is now, and that's how it will continue to be. And sometimes there is a little bit of a wait for one lane to move forward so the other person can get through. But it'll be no different than it is now. Sorry, go ahead, Howard.
There's never been any accidents or any confusion.
Right. And this is how it is at our 6. We have 9 locations total. 6 of them offer flex service, where you can choose exterior only or full service, like here at Royal Oak. And it's the same everywhere, and it works.
And is that bona fide parking in front, closest to Woodward, in front of the gas pumps? Because I see people park there like sideways all the time. Is that bona fide parking? Do you know? It was almost like parallel to Woodward. There's about enough for 2 different spaces.
Yeah, there's a couple of spaces there. But
is that counted in your parking? Because I know people park there all the time.
Yes.
Is it? Okay.
It is count. Okay. And by the way, Howard, I wanted to point out one more thing that I hadn't discussed with you yet, but it's good to mention it here. My dad pointed this out today, or a couple days ago. Over on Alfred Street, right on the street, there's actually street parking. There's enough for 2 to 3 cars over on the north side of our building. And I know we can't consider that our parking, but in reality, that could be more overflow for us.
Right. You and I discussed that early on, but because it's not on your property, we didn't count it.
Okay.
It's general parking. It could be parked there. If you take an aerial view, we can show you where it's at.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Mr. Olfak.
Yeah, currently how much your maximum staff at any given time at swing time, what is that? And then the number of spots there, I see on the plan, it looks like there's 13 that with the proposed layout in the back corner that's against that gas station. Is that correct? Or because I'm just trying to make sure we're getting all the right number of spots. So I'm trying to add up where the deficiencies at.
Joe, could you bring up the site plan again? We can look at that.
Because I want to say it was sheet 202 which had the proposed layout.
So Anthony, our staffing, just to answer the first part of your question while they're pulling that up, our staffing can range from 14 people on the clock to 18.
Okay.
But again, most don't, at least half of them, if not more, don't drive. They take the bus.
No, I'm just trying to envision because of the number of people coming to a gas station to park that's not at their pump is low. The number of people coming to go to your car wash and park that's not using a service, I've got to imagine is
not
extremely low that's outside of staff. So I'm I'm trying to figure out the practical difficulties in the fact of just your use versus a normal use on the parking side.
Right. There's very few people that get out of the car and come in.
You know, like everything else, times are changing. And I'm going to use the word olden days, which is where the brick stations, pay stations came from, where there was an attendant. We're eliminating those. In some brand new car washes, there's no attendant pay stations. It's all automated. In the old days, people would come into the car wash because there was an area in the car wash where you had to pay and you could wait for your car to come through. Now you drive through. Everything's different. Everything's moved forward. We're in the age of technology, moving forward. And that's what's caused all of these changes and caused everything to happen. So you're right in the comment that very few, if any, customers are going to come in, park, and go in the building. They can, but there's nothing for them to do there.
And let me remind the board, I mean, we are simply talking about whether or not to waive 8 of the minimum required 16 spots. Let's not let the conversation sway too far away from the simple variance that we are looking at here. Ms. Anderson?
Well, then, speaking of age of technology, and I'm trying not to swing, but it comes to parking, are you planning on putting in electric car chargers at some point? Because that'll definitely take some parking space.
No, that is not on our radar at this time.
Right.
Or I can't see it being on our radar. We have other ideas for the overall plan of the property, which we would come back to you or planning at that point when we're ready to do it. But the electric charging stations would not be a part of it.
The electric charging stations are going to be in areas like Walmarts and large department stores or grocery stores where you're going in for a period of time. There's no reason to come to this site, whether it's gas or wash, to sit there and charge your car.
All right, not seeing any of the questions for the petitioners, I'm going to bring it back to this side of the table. And is anybody prepared to take action? Mr. Olfak.
I'll propose to grant the variances as requested.
We have a motion by Mr. Olfak and support by Mr. Kroll, or a second by Mr. Kroll. Mr. Olfak?
What I see here is the practical difficulty of this unique business and where it's located at, also being on Woodward. And as we all know, Woodward always has parking problems. Whether or not they have the staff come by bus or not, they're actually causing the elimination of more of their booths, which potentially could end up eliminating those jobs, which means even less staff is needed for parking. As we know, I don't know about you, but I've never parked unless it's a supermarket to run into a gas station, not at a pump. And I've never parked for just using the car wash and to walk inside. So I think these are unique circumstances to this business type. And although the neighborhood is sent in their dissenting opinions because of the way their noise and everything else is, that's not on the table. It's all based upon parking. So because of that, I'm in support of this motion.
Mr. Kroll?
Yeah, I think we're all probably customers of this place. I spend a considerable amount of time there, and it always amazes me that it works. I went over there, and there were cars parked all those places that there isn't any parking anymore. So somehow they were figured out how to do that, and everybody kind of followed the guy in front of them, and they went through the wash, and it just kind of worked. So I'm not sure why it works or how it works, but it seems to work. And if it works, why? I guess if they were proposing this and it wasn't already up there, and I couldn't watch it, it might have had a different feel. But just sitting there watching it, poetry in motion, just going on like it always did. So, no minus.
And I'm going to chime in. I will not be supporting this motion. I mean, I think the write-up from staff is pretty clear that we're looking at a situation where an unapproved southernmost automated teller was put in place without permission. It created a situation where it eliminated 8 of their parking spots. I think this is a situation where, asking for forgiveness instead of permission. And I think this is something that needs to be worked out with the city and rectified so that the parking requirements as set forth in the zoning ordinance by the city can be adhered to. I see no reason to support this motion, as this frankly was a hardship brought on by the petitioner himself and nobody else. Is there any other discussion, Mr. Gavin?
I agree with you, Mr. Asbury. I think the staff write-up addressed it very clearly, and your summary was really good too. They brought it on themselves. That's all there is to it.
Mr. Asbury, can I respond?
You can respond. You're not going to change my mind, but go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say, this was not a situation where we did it and asked for with the intention of asking for forgiveness later. My father did what he did this. I'll throw him under the bus here. He thought we were cool with the electrical permits. He was obviously wrong, and I do apologize, but that was not our intent going in.
No, don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't think there was like any malicious intent here, but what took place did take place, and therefore I can't support this motion. Let me start with Mr. Curtis and Mr. Olfak.
Yeah, I think I won't be in support of this motion either. I think it's a solvable problem though, because you're going to take out that middle booth and put in a new automated one, which you could move over a little bit to the left if I'm from the street, and then, yep, it'll be a little bit more expense, but you'll have to take the one that wasn't properly permitted and also move it over while you're doing it. And I think you'll be able to fit your parking and all three, two of which will be automated. But anyway, so I won't be in support of approving this variance.
Mr. Olfak, I think I had you next.
Yeah, even the crazy thing is theoretically they could have put a parking sign up at every one of those vacuum ones. They probably would not need to come before us because those would count as parking, yet people would just park and vacuum anyway. So I think it's sort of useless to be at this point of whether or not these back spots can be used by their staff, which would be the only people who use it anyway. And those spots were already there previously before that thing went in. So that's my thought.
Mr. Kroll.
Yeah, and I'm kind of sitting here wondering why this car wash is that much different than everything else we view on Woodward Avenue. Like I mentioned earlier, that was the first one that came without a parking variance. Everything on Woodward Avenue needs a parking variance because we didn't plan for actual cars and things. I think these people are. I understand you're upset, Mr. Chair, that they went with forgiveness instead of permission. It tends to bother me as well. But I'm saying on Woodward, they're able to use the parking. I don't know what separates that from other parts of Woodward Avenue. I mean, we've given away 3 million more parking spaces than we have on Woodward already. So what's another 8?
All right, any other comments? All right, not seeing any, I'm going to go ahead and call for the roll call vote. And again, this is to approve the variance request for the 8 spots. I'll start with Mr. Klatt.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Gavin?
No.
Mr. Kroll?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
No.
Mr. Olfak?
Yes.
I vote no. Ms. Zukin?
Yes.
And Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
All right, so the motion does pass. Was that 6-3, Mr. Murphy? All right, the motion passes and you gentlemen are all set then.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate your time and your business as well.
All right, have a great night. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
everybody.
Happy holidays.
You too.
All right, so that is the end of our published agenda. Do we have any other business for the good of the city?
Nope.
All right.
Wish
And we-
a happy Hanukkah and a Merry Christmas.
Happy
Absolutely.
Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Everyone stay safe. Don't get sick.
Right.
Adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
And we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Till next year.
Thank you.
Can we invest in a microphone for Joseph?
Yeah, really.
I'm serious.
he's
I'm
gone.
serious about it. We can't hear. How can we
It's
can't hear.
his, it'll be his Christmas present.
Really?
Someone's got to buy him a
Please,
mic.
It all kick in.
please.
Well,
They're
hopefully,
only
we can get it
$10.
rectified by January. All right, happy holidays, everybody. Take care.
Take care.
Night.